Black technology, the super empire that spans two worlds. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 176, Achieving the Effect of a United Front. After the interview, the media released it the next day. It was a 20-minute interview video. Once released, it became the hottest topic at the beginning of the new year. People from all walks of life collided with each other and discussed it from all aspects. In a sense, this is a greater change to the human society on Earth and room temperature superconducting materials. However, it is particularly worth mentioning that after watching the interview video, whether it is the absolute majority of ordinary people, or the rich and elites, all groups of upper, middle and lower are surprisingly unanimous in their yearning and support for Xiao Yu's promotion of single-organ cloning technology. Support has become the mainstream voice. Without him, who doesn't want to double their blood bar? The future blueprint that Xiao Yu described in the interview has an irresistible attraction to humans. The breakthrough of single-organ cloning technology can extend the average lifespan of humans to more than 200 years old, and it is not ruled out that it can reach 300 years old, which is equivalent to the life cycle of a dynasty. According to Xiao Yu's description, living to more than 200 years old has become the norm. Who can refuse this? Big data shows that the average life expectancy of humans in the world in 2022 is about 72 years old, which is equivalent to increasing the blood bar by 2 or even 3 times. Even if Xiao Yu is painting a big cake, everyone loves to eat it. There is no way. It is really hard to resist the temptation of doubling or even several times the blood bar. This temptation is higher than wealth and power, because both require life to enjoy. This time the public also loves to eat and support it, because Xiao Yu has set a goal in the interview video without any hesitation, which is to reduce the comprehensive cost of single-organ cloning and transplantation surgery to about 30,000 to 50,000 yuan. He dared to say so, and no one dared to think so. But everyone really loves to listen, because with a cost of 30,000 to 50,000 yuan, even ordinary people can afford organ transplantation surgery. In particular, Xiao Yu directly said in the interview video that he would not give himself room for maneuver, and would never allow money-dominated distribution to appear. The principle of equal life opportunities must be adhered to, and the words no negotiation were used to finalize the words. It is difficult for the middle and lower classes not to support it. The elites and wealthy people in the middle and upper classes will undoubtedly support it more than the general public, because they are more eager to extend their lifespan. As for whether it is money-dominated distribution or equal life opportunities, in the eyes of the elites and wealthy groups, it is a secondary issue. Instead, we must first break through this technology, which is the premise of everything. If this technology is not developed, then it is useless to say anything. Based on this premise, the upper class will certainly support it first. Whether it is money-dominated distribution or equal life opportunities, these things are things that will be done after the single-organ cloning technology is developed. Similarly, including a series of problems derived from it, the impact on the existing social structure and other potential problems, even if they are known, they will be put aside first. And everything will be discussed after the technology is developed first. Just after Xiao Yu's interview video was released, the masters in the field of bioengineering who promised Xu Jinming to switch to Lingjing technology also watched it, which dispelled their concerns. Especially Xiao Yu clearly stated the principle of equal life opportunities in the interview video, and they no longer hesitated for this reason. Because Xiao Yu's concept may be more important to them than treatment, funding promises, etc., because working in this field, more or less, will face many unavoidable difficulties at the moral and ethical level. Xiao Yu's concept can provide great comfort at the moral level. 3 days later, the first group of people arrived in Linsao City and officially joined Lingjing Technology. They are all real scientific experts in the field of modern bioengineering. Others will also come, but they are a little slower and need to hand over their original work. On Monday, February 13th, that afternoon, Xiao Yu took time to receive a guest in his 60s at home. At this time, Xiao Yu, Xu Jinming and the guest were staying in the living room of the villa. Xu Jinming immediately looked at Xiao Yu and smiled and said, "This is my doctoral supervisor, Mr. Chen Shooting. He is a top-notch master in the field of cell engineering, and he is also a master in several professional fields such as genetic engineering and biochemical engineering. Chu Jinmeng turned to look at her mentor Chen Shooting and introduced, he is Xiao Yu who founded Lingjing Technology, Avic Linfei and HP Foundation. After a brief introduction, Xiao Yu looked at Chen Shooting, who was already in his 60s, and smiled politely. I often hear Jinmeng mention you. I have admired your achievements in the field of monomer organ cloning technology for a long time. I have long wanted to communicate with you in person. With your joining, I dare to invest more money in the field of monomer organ cloning. Talents must naturally be fully respected. After all, Xiao Yu's identity is the founder of Lingjing Technology, and the other party is a person who came to seek refuge. However, Chu Jinmeng, who was sitting next to him, heard this and couldn't help but murmur in his heart, wondering if he often talked to him about Chen Shooting. At this time, Chen Shooting also said politely, Mr. Xiao is young and promising. He has conquered the room temperature superconducting material that humans have been pursuing for more than 100 years and has won the holy grail of the material industry in one fell swoop. He has also achieved mass production of graphene and is also leading the world in the field of artificial intelligence. These are profoundly changing the world. Compared with my little achievements in my own industry, they are not worth mentioning. The two sides met for the first time, and polite words were inevitable. But there was no excessive politeness. After a few business greetings, the conversation then shifted to the technology of single-organ cloning. At this moment, Chen Shooting said in amazement, speaking of which, I really didn't expect that Mr. Xiao's interview video would have such a big effect. It is rare that people from all walks of life have reached a united front on this issue, making the voice of support almost absolute mainstream. The reason for this was understood by the three people present. Things like extending lifespan and doubling health bars are really something that few people can resist. However, Chen Shooting was indeed quite surprised, because the application of cloning technology in conquering diseases and delaying aging is not rare, but in the same situation, everyone buys Xiao Yu's words, and it is rare for rich people and ordinary people to form a united front on this matter. They have been engaged in research in the industry for decades, and there are also people who make big promises, but not many people buy in. Chapter 177, Communication. Chen Shooting used the word united front to describe it, which was very accurate. Xiao Yu's previous interview with the media was for the purpose of achieving the effect of united front, otherwise he would not have the time to accept a media interview. He is very busy. Because the problem of single-organ cloning technology is not trivial, to be precise, this technology can greatly extend the lifespan of people, and the subversive changes it brings to the structure of human society are extremely profound. Once the variable of greatly extended lifespan appears, it will definitely affect the existing social structure of human beings, and it is not an empty statement. The benefit of getting a longer lifespan also has a price. There are many, many problems here, and they are all very difficult. Let's not talk about anything else, just say that the impact on the social security mechanism is extremely huge. The current mechanism is to receive pensions in the 60s, but if the retired group can live for more than 200 years, my goodness, then the current amount of social security funds will definitely not be able to support it, and it will definitely be pulled out. Because when it was designed, it was not thought that retirees could receive such a long period of time. If social security is not adjusted and continues to be implemented according to the current regulations, it is inevitable and there is no doubt that it will be pulled out. It can be seen from this that there are many problems derived, and they are foreseeable. But Xiao Yu is determined to promote the single-organ cloning technology, because it is related to the long-term development of the future and the expansion of the human survival boundary into the space universe. The short lifespan of human beings is a core pain point that restricts the development of space. At this time, the united front becomes extremely important, otherwise the resistance is unimaginable. Xiao Yu's desire to promote the single-organ cloning technology may not be promoted, or it may be extremely difficult. After achieving the support of the upper, middle and lower classes, the rich and ordinary people, and reaching the united front at this level, the resistance is much smaller, because everyone wants to make it, which is what the people want and what the people expect. This is called public opinion cannot be violated. Decision makers will definitely be happy to see it happen, because decision makers may not do it openly, but they will do it secretly. The temptation of doubling lifespan is too great. Once the voices of support from all classes become the mainstream, there is no need to do it secretly, it can be pushed forward openly, and decision makers will of course be happy to see it happen. However, at this moment, Xiao Yu heard what Chen Shooting said, and immediately said, The mainstream voice is supportive, but since there is a mainstream, there are still non-mainstream voices. The broad support from all walks of life is certainly a good start, but the objective reality cannot be ignored. We still have to be cautious and optimistic, and the road ahead is still full of thorns, Xiao Yu added. For example, at the ethical level, there are fierce discussions on the nature of life, identity recognition, and interference with evolution. At the legal level, the current definition is unclear, the regulations are unclear, and the shortcomings in rights protection are prominent, which urgently need to be improved, he then said. Especially in terms of social acceptance, the public's cognition is uneven and attitudes are divided. The allocation of medical resources, medical insurance policies, and social concepts are facing shocks. These problems can be put aside for now, but it does not mean that they do not exist. At this time, Chu Jingmeng, who was sitting next to Xiao Yu, couldn't help but say, speaking of social acceptance and public cognition, the year before last, our industry and foreign academic circles jointly conducted a total survey covering many countries and regions around the world with a sample size of tens of thousands. At that time, I also participated in the volunteer activities of the survey, Chu Jingmeng recalled. The survey report shows that the public's awareness of monomeric organ cloning technology varies. In developed countries and my country, about 40% of respondents said they had only heard of the name of the technology, but knew very little about its specific principles, operating procedures and potential impacts. The proportion is even higher in non-developed countries, with about 60% of the public saying they have never had an in-depth understanding. In terms of professional knowledge, even among the highly educated group, only about 10% of people can accurately explain core technical links, such as somatic cell cloning and gene editing, which reflects the serious lack of public knowledge. After a pause, Chu Jingmeng continued, in terms of attitude, according to survey data, the public is clearly divided. About 30% of respondents are optimistic about monomeric organ cloning technology, believing that it is a revolutionary breakthrough in the development of medicine, which can save countless lives and should be accelerated in development and application. They often have relatives and friends around them who suffer from organ diseases and have personally experienced the helplessness of organ shortages, so they have high hopes. Another 35% of the public are cautious or worried about this. They are worried about technical risks, such as the safety and long-term stability of single-organ cloning, as well as the ethical confusion that may be caused. They are afraid of the emergence of derivative problems such as cloning humans that violate human nature. Obviously, this group of people that Chu Jingmeng mentioned is deeply influenced by traditional ethical concepts, and they are skeptical about the emerging technology breaking the laws of natural reproduction and life reproduction. However, Xiao Yu is not worried about this. If the opportunity to double their lifespan is really put in front of them, they will definitely be honest in their words. Chu Jingmeng continued, the last 35% of the public is in a state of hesitation, waiting for more scientific evidence and the formation of social consensus. Their attitudes are easily influenced by external factors such as media reports and expert interpretations. This also highlights the urgency of strengthening popular science propaganda and guiding rational cognition. At this moment, Xiao Yu couldn't help but glance at Chu Jingmeng in surprise when he heard this. He suddenly found that this girl was quite contrasting. She was usually very funny, but now she showed such a serious and intellectual side. Could it be that the tutor was present and she was restrained? However, Xiao Yu also found that Chu Jingmeng was really professional when talking about professional matters. After a moment, Chen Shooting nodded and said, yes, and because of this, it is even more precious that Mr. Xiao can achieve such a broad united front effect in all walks of life with just a 20-minute interview video. To be honest, I was talking about this matter with several colleagues the day before yesterday, and we were surprised by the reaction of the outside world. Chen Shooting then extended, single-organ cloning technology has always been caught in a vortex of many complex and sharp ethical disputes. The first one to bear the brunt is the issue of life ethics. Although the cloned organs are intended to cure diseases and overcome diseases, from a philosophical perspective, their essence triggers deep thinking. It breaks the traditional model of natural reproduction and organ generation, and challenges human cognition of life and humanity. Whether cloned organs have independent consciousness or potential human characteristics has always been the focus of heated discussion in academia and the public. If future technological development allows organ cloning to have partial consciousness, it will completely subvert the existing life ethics and trigger a redefinition and construction of human beings. Chapter 178, Everything that happens is good for me. Chen Shuding, who had opened up, also began to speak freely. In addition, the identity crisis cannot be ignored. For patients who receive cloned organ transplants, the genes of the organs in their bodies are the same as their own, which may induce identity confusion at the psychological level, especially in some cultural concepts. Physical integrity and uniqueness are regarded as the cornerstones of personal dignity. After the cloned organs are implanted, patients may fall into self-doubt and become confused about who am I, which in turn breeds psychological disorders and affects post-operative recovery and quality of life. Hearing this, Xiao Yu said calmly and disapprovingly, "Post-operative health is a technical issue. As for psychological disorders, in my opinion, people with such problems are just too full. If they are really given the opportunity to live another 200 years, the biggest obstacle will be that 200 years is not enough and they want to live another 200 years. After these words came out, Chen Shuding was speechless, and Xu Jinming couldn't help but cover her mouth with a smile. After this episode, Chen Shuding paused for a moment and said, "Comparatively speaking, another problem is more prominent. Considering the long history of human evolution, if the single-organ cloning technology is realized in the future and applied on a large scale, whether it will interfere with the natural evolution process is highly controversial. It allows individuals with genetic defects to survive for a long time, which may hinder the natural selection elimination that is not conducive to genes and affect the optimization of genetic diversity of the human population. Over-reliance on the replacement of cloned organs may gradually degenerate the evolutionary adaptability of the human body's own organs, thereby weakening the natural resilience of humans to cope with unknown diseases and environmental changes in the future, causing humans to deviate from nature on the road of evolution and fall into an ethical dilemma." Chen Shuding couldn't help but sigh when he said this, because this problem cannot be avoided and is cruel. If we examine it from the perspective of the entire human population, it is equivalent to avoiding natural selection and retaining the defective genes that should have been eliminated, which will objectively affect the optimization of the genetic diversity of the population. But allowing natural selection to eliminate is undoubtedly extremely cruel to individuals. Moreover, once organ cloning and replacement becomes mainstream, it will objectively lead to the degradation of humans' natural evolutionary adaptability. Hearing this, Xiao Yu smiled and said, "The continuous development of modern medicine can also be said to have caused the decline of the human body's evolutionary adaptability. Individuals with genetic defects live longer and can even continue to give birth to offspring. If they follow natural selection, these individuals should have been eliminated long ago, let alone have offspring. The same problem, why doesn't it work when it comes to organ cloning and transplantation? There is a saying in the Book of Changes that the one who follows it is good, and everything that happens is beneficial to me. Good things will turn bad, and bad things will turn good, but no matter whether it is good or bad, there will be gains. In other words, everything that happens has its two sides. It depends on how to transform it into endless good results. As the saying goes, people can promote the Tao, but the Tao cannot promote people. In a certain situation, a thing must be restricted by the environment. Before it happens, no one knows whether it is good or bad. Everything in the world, especially one's own affairs, is good, and there is no bad thing. This is not enough. If you treat anything as a good thing, it will really go in a good direction. If you treat it as a bad thing, it will also go in a bad direction. It's all caused by yourself. We often say that everything will come true, because everything has two sides. If we see the good side and actively respond to it, things will naturally turn to the good side. Otherwise, why do we say that we should think about things in a positive way and turn them to the good side? Chen Shuding still dares not draw a conclusion about whether the single-organ cloning technology is good or bad. He is also troubled by the gains and losses between individuals and groups, and is more or less entangled in the entanglement of self-spiritual internal consumption. However, Xiao Yu's understanding does not have the so-called self-spiritual internal consumption. He examines this issue from the perspective of an selfless observer. From this perspective, all things in the world are part of nature. The so-called self-selection can also be regarded as a way of nature's selection, but it is realized through the self-selection of humans. The successor is good, and everything that happens is beneficial to me. Chen Shuding muttered these words to himself. After a while, he suddenly felt a sense of sudden enlightenment. He did not expect that his communication with Xiao Yu could solve his mental consumption for many years, and he immediately felt that the trip was worthwhile. Chen Shuding had not expected that Xiao Yu, a junior, would have such a high level of realm, but it also made him feel that joining Lingjing technology would not be a wrong choice. Afterwards, the two sides began to discuss the technical issues of single-organ cloning. Xiao Yu smiled and said, "My main focus is on new materials, but my interests and hobbies are quite broad. In recent years, I have also been studying hard in the field of modern bioengineering. I think that in terms of technical principles and processes, the single-organ cloning technology has already built a good foundation. Through the coordinated efforts of somatic cell cloning, gene editing, and stem cell differentiation induction, organ customization has moved from theory to practice." Hearing this, Chen Shooting couldn't help but nodded. This view coincides with mine. In addition, from the development history, landmark achievements such as Dolly the sheep are keynotes. In recent years, there have been some breakthroughs in the fields of liver, heart, and lung cloning, which has injected new impetus into clinical applications and demonstrated potential in delaying aging and conquering diseases. It is expected to renew cells, repair the body, and break the limitation of lifespan. Xiao Yu immediately added, "I always believe that to overcome this problem, it still requires the collaboration of multiple fields. Biology, medicine, and materials science should work together to dig deep into mechanisms, optimize solutions, and develop materials, innovate research methods, use organoids, single-cell sequencing, and artificial intelligence to accurately empower, learn from the wisdom of biological regeneration, tame the immune system, and stimulate cell potential, etc." Chen Shooting also nodded in agreement. "Only when all walks of life work together can we have a better chance of overcoming many obstacles." After this exchange, Chen Shooting suddenly looked at Xiao Yu and smiled. The outside media described Mr. Xiao as a genius that only appears once in a century. It is indeed worthy of the name. Not only is it not exaggerated, it may even be conservative. He focuses on the field of new materials, and has such outstanding insights in modern bioengineering, which is not his specialty. At this point, Chen Shooting added, "If Mr. Xiao had chosen the modern bioengineering monomer organ cloning technology major, perhaps this field would have made a huge breakthrough." Then, Chen Shooting said, "Although it is a pity that the field of modern bioengineering has lost a genius, it has gained a genius in the field of materials science, which has brought about the advent of room temperature superconductivity. Perhaps this is what Mr. Xiao said, the successor is good, and everything that happens is beneficial to me." Chapter 179, Budget and Planning for Investment in this area. Who says scientists don't understand the ways of the world? Who says scientists have high IQ and low EQ? Professor Chen's words have maxed out his EQ index. In fact, it's impossible for a person with high IQ to have low EQ, but they just don't bother to waste their expressions on ordinary people or ordinary things. In the final analysis, it's a question of whether Xiao Yu has enough weight in his heart. Obviously, Xiao Yu has already had a lot of weight in Chen Shooting's heart. Apart from anything else, after all, this young man will be his new employer and boss in the future. But then again, Chen Shooting's words were not all about praising each other's EQ. He was really surprised by some of Xiao Yu's insights. He really believed that if Xiao Yu relied on his talent to focus on the research in the field of monomer organs, he might have achieved results that were no less than the breakthrough of room temperature superconductivity in the materials industry. In fact, Professor Chen never expected that the core of the young man in front of him was a cheating player. Others were exploring answers in the unknown, but Xiao Yu had a reference answer directly. The blue star world can be regarded as a preview of the version answer. Of course, Xiao Yu himself is indeed gifted. Apart from other things, if you were an ordinary person, he would not understand even if the version answer was placed in front of him. Single-organ cloning technology is even a very common technical branch in the field of cloning technology in the blue star world. The real cloning technology there is the organic body technology. Especially the consciousness transplantation that can truly enable people to live a new life in an alternative sense, which is equivalent to being able to live for more than 200 years and then replace it with a more vital organic clone to live for another 200 years. In theory, as long as the consciousness transplantation operation can be successful, you can never die. Compared with these, single-organ cloning technology does seem a bit too backward, which is why Xiao Yu can easily obtain the version reference answer of single-organ cloning technology in the blue star world. The real technical skills are difficult, such as the technology of organic body. If it is not mastered by the red tide organization in the blue star world, and if Xiao Yu cannot provide the organization with something to continue, it is almost impossible to obtain such black technology. As for the technology that can allow people to live a new life and transfer consciousness to a new cloned body, Xiao Yu has not found any valuable information in the Blue Star world so far. It can be seen that it is strictly monopolized and kept secret. This is the real technical skill. At the end, Chen Shooting looked at Xiao Yu and couldn't help asking, Mr. Xiao plans to invest a lot in the field of modern bioengineering. After such a long time of communication, this is the most practical thing to say. Hearing this, Xiao Yu smiled and said, Professor Chen, you can rest assured about this question. The investment is definitely far beyond the imagination of the industry. There is no doubt that the starting budget of 10 billion yuan is enough. As for the total investment expectation, I don't know how much it will take. In short, I will not reduce the investment until the technology breaks through. I will only increase it further. Chen Shooting heard Xiao Yu's firm words, and he was immediately relieved. He was worried that he was making a decision on a whim and would stop doing it if he found that there was no way to do it in the short term. Now it seems that he has found that Xiao Yu is mentally prepared for a protracted war, which makes him completely relieved. It will definitely not lead to the research being abandoned halfway. In fact, Xiao Yu never thought about fighting a protracted war. He just showed such an attitude to reassure Chen Shooting and others who came to Lingjing Technology, because the version answer was in his hand, and there was no need to fight a protracted war. All he needed to do was to lay the groundwork, and when the time was ripe, he would make a major breakthrough. Xiao Yu had already made a clear plan in his mind. His plan was to achieve a major technological breakthrough with the help of Chu Jingmen in 1 to 2 years, and then enter the clinical trial stage, and achieve preliminary clinical application in about the 3rd year. At most, around the 5th year, it will be fully applied to all patients who must have an organ transplant to survive. Even if the safety and long-term stability of single-organ cloning have not been verified, it is no longer important to them, because such patients will definitely die without organ transplantation. In this situation, the patients themselves will be willing to gamble for the chance to survive, because there is no other choice. However, it is not far from being fully popularized. For example, for general organ damage or lesions, patients who have not yet reached the point where they must replace their organs cannot use them freely, because if they do, the size of the entire group will rapidly increase exponentially. To put it bluntly, even after 5 years, it is still not possible to replace cloned organs for any minor or moderate disease, and patients cannot replace them just because they want to. Because the size of the target group has increased dramatically, the safety and long-term stability of single-organ cloning must be taken into consideration. Otherwise, once there is a problem, it will involve tens of millions or even hundreds of millions of people. If there is no problem, it is fine. If there is a problem, the consequences will be absolutely unimaginable. To test whether the safety and stability of single-organ cloning are reliable enough, you cannot take shortcuts, and you must use real time to verify. There is no rush at all. There is only one way, and it can be summarized in one word, that is, wait, day after day, year after year, until decades have passed, during which scientists track and study the conditions of patients who have undergone single-organ transplantation surgery and draw the final conclusion. Xiao Yu's plan is to achieve the goal of full popularization at least in 30 years. That is, by that time, there will be no restrictions. As long as the patient wants to change this organ and is willing to pay for it, any minor illness can be treated with cloned organ transplantation if production capacity permits. Without decades of verification, its safety and long-term stability will not be tenable. 30 years is almost enough, and there is also enough sample size to support it, which is statistically significant, because in 30 years, there will definitely be a large number of patients who must replace their organs to survive, and thus a large amount of sample data will be formed. This can be regarded as them taking the lead in assuming the potential risks for others and providing research support for scientists. As a reward for taking this risk, they have the opportunity to prolong their lives. After all, if they do not accept the transplantation of single-organ clones, they may have died long ago. With a full 30-year period, the sample size must be extremely rich. Only in this way can reliable safety and stability be obtained, and it can stand. Xiao Yu plans to popularize single-organ cloning and transplantation technology for all people in 30 years. By that time, it will be the middle of the 21st century. Compared with today, the world on Earth will have undergone tremendous changes. Maybe humans will have established a permanent scientific research base on Mars. Chapter 180. Join with determination without any worries. Finally, Xiao Yu looked at Chen Shooting and smiled frankly. As for the issue of R&D funding, Lingjing Technology's newly established modern bioengineering business department will definitely take care of it, and it will be long-term and sustainable. It will definitely not be abandoned halfway. As long as Lingjing Technology does not go bankrupt, this business department will not be closed. Speaking of a small matter, personally, I also hope that I and my relatives and friends can live longer. It is absolutely a lie to say that I don't care. Speaking of a big matter, this is crucial for the future expansion of human civilization's survival boundaries into the deep space of the universe. The current lifespan of human individuals cannot be said to be short, but it cannot be said to be very long. It is enough in the planetary civilization stage, but if it is upgraded to the stellar civilization stage, it will only be active within the solar system. It will take more than 10 years to go back and forth from the Earth to Saturn, which accounts for about 1/5 of a person's lifespan. A lifespan of less than 100 years is not enough. Obviously, Xiao Yu will definitely not learn from the Blue Star world. It has sufficient foundations for some core conditions to leave the mother planet and move into the universe, but it chooses to shrink on the mother planet and not expand its survival boundaries outward. Because the vested interests of the Blue Star world are worried that expanding the boundaries of the universe will inevitably lead to the rise of emerging forces. They are worried that they cannot control it, and their own status will be shaken or even overthrown by emerging forces. Therefore, in order to avoid the rise of emerging forces shaking their dominant position, the strategy they choose is to maintain the same, so there will be no such variables. Even if there are, they will be more easily strangled in their own advantageous areas. In a sense, the Blue Star world is also trapped in the dilemma of the resource curse theory. Just like some countries or regions on the Earth, they have abundant natural resources, but these resources hinder their development, causing their growth to be slow, development to stagnate, or even regress. For example, Africa and Brazil in South America have not developed very well because of their abundant natural resources. After all, you can pick up endless wild fruits with your hands. The gifts of nature are so abundant that there is not enough motivation to study rice improvement technology. In other words, there is not enough motivation to develop technology and productivity, so development is slow or even stagnant. On the other hand, the eastern big country has insufficient resources and a huge population. The problem of having enough food needs to be solved urgently. If it is not solved, there will be chaos. Under such great pressure, they have to find a technological breakthrough. Even in ancient times, the Yellow River often broke its banks and flooded, forcing the ancient Chinese ancestors to find technological breakthroughs to control floods and optimize the irrigation of cultivated land, which also promoted the progress of technology and civilization. The human beings in the Blue Star world have rich natural resources that Xiao Yu, an Earthling, MV. Natural gold is everywhere and has been treated as a general industrial metal. There are also a large number of natural room temperature superconducting veins. I have everything I need at home, so I don't want to go out. Moreover, the human social structure in the Blue Star world is so solidified, and the vested interests are conservative and stubborn. The resource curse is also an important factor, because it makes the conservatives particularly powerful and makes it extremely difficult for emerging forces to rise. If the Earth is similar, it may not be much better. Some countries and regions rich in natural resources are now experiencing the dilemma of the resource curse, and Brazil is undoubtedly a typical example. But the Earth as a whole obviously does not have such favorable conditions as the Blue Star. Imagine if the Earth humans knew that there were natural room temperature superconducting ores on Titan or other satellites in Saturn's orbit. They would definitely go crazy to work on aerospace technology in order to be able to go to Titan to mine and get natural room temperature superconducting ores. The aerospace technology of Earth civilization will definitely realize the normalization of interplanetary navigation decades earlier. The interstellar mining industry will flourish, and controlled nuclear fusion technology may have already been broken through. At this moment, Chen Shooting heard Xiao Yu's frank words and admitted that he also wanted to extend his lifespan, which made him no longer worried, because this reason supported his continuous investment. After all, wealth is already a number for Xiao Yu, so much that even if he transferred 50% of the shares of Lingjing Technology to HP Fund free of charge, he would still be able to become the world's richest man in the foreseeable future through Avic Linfa E Company, because Avic Linfa E has mastered the technology of room temperature superconducting materials. In this case, Chen Shooting also believed that the desire to prolong life must be more attractive to Xiao Yu than money and wealth. In fact, Xiao Yu really needs to extend his blood bar because he has to move between the two worlds of Earth and Blue Star, and the difference in the speed of time will cause him to stay in one world for too long. Although the speed of time is normal for Xiao Yu himself, as many years pass, he will age faster than the other world. In layman's terms, it is equivalent to Xiao Yu using his lifespan blood bar, and the consumption rate is doubled compared to others. The most direct and effective way to solve this problem is to lengthen the thickness of the blood bar, which is also the only solution at present. As long as your blood bar is thick enough, it is not a big problem to consume faster than others, and it can be ignored. This is also an important reason why Xiao Yu wants to accelerate the promotion of single-organ cloning technology as soon as possible, because time is actually very urgent for him. Unless you can quickly get the real unique black technology of the Blue Star world, which can realize the black technology of reliving a lifetime and transplant the consciousness into another complete cloned body, then there will be no worries at all. But this is obviously very difficult. Xiao Yu needs to build a huge power base in the Blue Star world, because he dare not use what others give him, and he cannot solve the trust problem. He must master it himself before he dares to use it, just like the organic body. Then he must have his own power in the Blue Star world and have enough strength to strive for it. And this is precisely what needs to be built up. In addition, Xiao Yu has to be active in two worlds, and the time or lifespan consumed is faster than that of people in any world, so time is even more insufficient. He may die before that day comes. At this time, the blood bar can be extended by about 200 years through the monomer cloning technology, which can be regarded as an intermediate transition period, so as not to wait until the day when the black technology of consciousness transplantation comes, and his blood bar can't hold up first. As time goes by, Xiao Yu and Chen Shooting have a lot of talks and exchanges. After about 2 hours, this meeting ended. Chen Shooting also said goodbye and left with satisfaction, and at the same time felt that the trip was worthwhile. After no worries, what he cares most about now is when the project research can be advanced to the substantive stage. This interview with Chen Shooting was also very important, because he represented the more than 200 scientists or senior talents in the field who came to join him. Xiao Yu's attitude and commitment to him was his attitude and commitment to the other 200 people. In the next few days, Chen Shooting also communicated his conversation with Xiao Yu to several of his colleagues, who then communicated to the other people, and soon the news reached the ears of the more than 200 people who planned to join Lingjing Technology. Like Chen Shooting, they no longer had any worries and were more determined to join Lingjing Technology. Chapter 181, Everyone Loves This Pie. It was mid to late February. More than 200 people including Chen Shooting arrived in Linsao City and joined Lingjing Technology. The company also hired these talents with high salaries. The bioengineering business department could be quickly established and operated because of the joining of these people. This also greatly saved time costs. For Xiao Yu, time costs are the most expensive. As long as the time cost can be reduced, it is the biggest saving in Xiao Yu's eyes. As for the issue of money investment, it is a small problem. On Friday, February 17th, Lingjing Technology officially issued an announcement and the company's board of directors passed a resolution. For the company's newly established bioengineering business department, a 3-decade ultra-long-term plan for monomer organ cloning technology was formulated. Each decade is a medium-term plan, and each 10-year medium-term plan is further subdivided into 3 short-term plans of about 3 years. This made everyone realize that Xiao Yu was going to be serious and play for real, rather than making gimmicks, playing with concepts, and not just drawing cakes. In addition, the company plans to invest 22.5 billion yuan in the first 3-year short-term plan for the research and development budget of monomer organ cloning technology. Chen Shooting and more than 200 people who came to join the company were also shocked when they saw the company's plan. It was too much beyond their expectations. They didn't expect Xiao Yu's investment and support in this field would be so great that he actually formulated a super long-term plan for 30 years. This is equivalent to telling them that they can work in Lingjing Technology until retirement. Moreover, the investment intensity is also far beyond their expectations. A 3-year short-term plan is expected to invest 22.5 billion in research and development expenses. If this number is quantified, the total investment in 30 years will reach 225 billion, which is undoubtedly an astronomical investment. Chen Shooting and others are all very excited about this. There is no need to worry about research and development funds. It can't be spent. It can't be spent at all. because research in the field of bioengineering is relatively not expensive. The exposure of the gene-edited baby incident in 2018, 5 years ago, caused an uproar in the industry and outside. The leader of the incident did not spend much money and did it secretly. Sometimes the cost of bioengineering research can be very low, and there is no need for too expensive equipment requirements. The upper limit is of course also very high, but the characteristic is that the lower limit is actually very low, so low that you can just get a few culture dishes, test tubes and some biological samples to conduct research, and you can even extract your own somatic cells as research samples. Unlike other industries, such as chips, the lower limit is not too low. Whether it is equipment or manpower, it cannot be done without a certain scale, and it is even more impossible for a single individual. On the contrary, for biological research, one person can just set up a laboratory in a room to conduct research. It can be seen that Xiao Yu allocated a huge budget of $22.5 billion to the company's bioengineering business department for a short-term plan of about 3 years, which confused Chen Shooting and others. Suddenly, they eat so well. Where was there such sufficient funding before? However, this incident did not have much effect on the stock price of Lingjing Technology in the capital market. When it was announced today, the company's stock price closed down -3.59%. falling back to 191.43 yuan, and the market value fell back to 16.62 trillion. Compared with the historical high of 239.89 yuan, the current share price of Lingjing Technology has fallen by -20.20%, and there is still no sign of stabilization. The company has not had any negative news during this period. The main factor for this adjustment is the normal profit-taking of profitable funds and the overall bad environment of the stock market. The market index has now entered a downward channel. In this case, it is not realistic for super large cap stocks like Lingjing Technology to strengthen again, unless there is an extremely unexpected epic positive boost stimulus. The company announced that it would enter the field of modern bioengineering and develop single-organ cloning technology. This matter has also been supported by the majority of people at all levels, but the impact on stock price fluctuations is neither negative nor positive. Investors believe that it is positive in the medium and long term, recognize the company's strong innovation ability, and are willing to give time to the company and wait. The real reaction to the stock price depends on the progress of the next research. If the research on single-organ cloning technology is blocked or even very pessimistic, such a large investment may be wasted. After such an expectation is formed, the reaction in the stock price will definitely be negative and fall. But on the other hand, if the progress is gratifying, or even exceeds expectations, the company will have a new support point, which will inevitably be reflected in the stock price, because once the single-organ cloning technology is clinically applied, it has an incredibly broad prospect. That afternoon, Xiao Yu logged into his personal Weibo and posted a dynamic article, further boosting the expectations of people from all walks of life for the single-organ cloning technology. We know that one of the core processes of aging is cell aging. As we age, cells undergo multiple divisions and their telomeres gradually shorten. Telomeres are like safety helmets at the ends of cell chromosomes, playing a key role in protecting gene integrity. When the telomeres are worn to a certain extent, the cells will start the aging program, stop dividing, and then cause organ function decline. The single-organ cloning technology brings hope to break this aging shackles. By cloning young and healthy organs to replace aging and diseased organs, the cell population can be fundamentally updated and the cell aging clock can be reset. Take the liver as an example. When the aging liver is replaced by a cloned new liver, the liver cells can rejuvenate and efficiently perform complex physiological functions such as metabolism and detoxification again, continuously injecting vitality into the body. From a molecular perspective, the activation of telomerase is a key factor, which can replenish telomere length during cell division and maintain the youthful state of cells. In normal somatic cells, telomerase activity is strictly regulated and at a low level. In the process of cloning organ cultivation, it is expected that the telomerase gene can be precisely regulated so that it is moderately activated in the transplanted organ to ensure the continuous proliferation of cells, thereby delaying the overall aging process and allowing the organs of the body to work together to maintain vigorous metabolic function. Many fatal diseases are roadblocks on the road to longevity for humans, and monomer organ cloning technology has shown unparalleled great potential in conquering these diseases. Take diabetes as an example. This global chronic disease originates from damage to pancreatic beta cells and dysregulation of insulin secretion, which causes high blood sugar and long-term damage to multiple organs such as the heart, kidneys, and eyes. Traditional treatments such as insulin injections can only relieve symptoms but cannot cure them. The monomer organ cloning technology takes a different approach. By collecting the patient's own cells, a fully functional pancreas or islet tissue is cloned, thereby achieving autonomous and precise secretion and regulation of insulin, correcting sugar metabolism disorders from the root, blocking the chain of disease deterioration, and avoiding a series of fatal complications caused by diabetes. Looking at heart disease again, as the world's #1 killer, myocardial infarction, heart failure, etc. are often caused by irreversible damage to myocardial cells, impaired heart pumping function, and insufficient blood supply to the whole body. Monomer organ cloning technology cultivates myocardial cells or myocardial tissue pieces in vitro, and uses biological scaffolds to accurately transplant them to the damaged myocardial site. These new myocardial cells are integrated into the heart tissue, which can enhance the heart's contraction and relaxation function, reshape the heart's vitality, and light up the dawn of life for patients with heart disease and solve the problem of disease. In short, on the road to achieving human longevity, monomer organ cloning technology has unparalleled potential in both delaying aging and conquering diseases, and the imagination space is broad. Whether it should be said or not, whether it can be achieved or not is not discussed for the time being. But Xiao Yu kept making big promises, one after another. Even though everyone knew he was making big promises, they still loved it. No matter if they were the common people in the middle and lower classes or the wealthy and powerful social elites, all groups loved it and ate it with relish. Because few people could resist the temptation of living for more than 200 years. This attraction was absolutely fatal. Chapter 182, Yun Shu's Surprise. The modern bioengineering business department of Lingjing Technology was officially put into operation half a month later. However, the department was not located in the company's current headquarters, but in a separate building as the department's office space and R&D center. However, this is also temporary. When the new headquarters park in Dongcheng district is completed, they will all move there together. The construction efficiency of the new headquarters park is very fast. According to the plan, it will be relocated after the second half of this year, not only Lingjing Technology, but also Avic Linfa E Company. In the following days, Xiao Yu also began to discuss the monomer organ cloning technology with Chu Jinming in a planned manner. In fact, he had the version answer in the words to influence and guide her research direction and ideas. Chu Jinming did not know Xiao Yu's intentions, but thought that his insights were unique and opened up many new ideas for her. Therefore, she often took the initiative to discuss the problems of monomer organ cloning technology with Xiao Yu. The time came to mid to late March. Chu Jinming was in Xiao Yu's office at Lingjing Technology headquarters. Half an hour ago, she came to the company headquarters from the R&D center of the bioengineering department to find him. This was her first time here. She had never been to Xiao Yu's company before. Brother-in-law, I have some new research ideas recently. Can you help me with some reference? I'm still undecided. Chu Jinming looked at Xiao Yu and said. What new ideas? Xiao Yu smiled and exchanged glances with her. He felt relieved. It seemed that she had gotten the idea after these exchanges and discussions. Chu Jinming said immediately, my idea is that the monomer organ cloning technology relies on a number of cutting-edge biotechnologies, including somatic cell cloning and stem cell differentiation induction. She paused for a moment, thought for a while, and continued, somatic cell cloning is the basis, based on the theory of cell totipotency, that is, the cell nucleus of a differentiated somatic cell still has all the genetic information to develop into a complete individual under certain conditions. Take kidney cloning as an example. First, a small amount of kidney tissue or other somatic cells, skin fibroblasts, are obtained from the patient. These somatic cells serve as donor cells, and their nuclei carry the patient's unique genetic code. At the same time, mature enucleated oocytes are obtained as recipient cells. Through micromanipulation technology, the nucleus of the donor cell is accurately transplanted into the enucleated oocyte. The reprogramming factors in the oocyte cytoplasm are used to differentiate the donor cell nucleus, restart the embryonic development program, and form a reconstruction package. This process is like resetting the clock of cell development, allowing the somatic cell nuclei that were originally directed to differentiate to return to the initial omnipotent state and start a new life-giving process. After Chu Jinming finished speaking, Xiao Yu immediately said, gene editing technology should be added. This technology can also play a key role in it. In the reconstructed embryo stage or subsequent cell culture process, with the help of gene editing tools, the genes of embryonic cells can be precisely modified, Xiao Yu added, for some hereditary kidney diseases. If the pathogenic gene has been identified, the mutant gene can be repaired at a fixed point to ensure that the gene sequence of the cloned kidney cells is normal, prevent the recurrence of the disease from the root, and provide patients with healthy organ seeds. As soon as these words came out, Chu Jinming suddenly said, "Oh, yes, this problem really cannot be ignored. It's right to come to you to discuss it." Chu Jinming smiled slightly, and then said, "In addition, I think stem cell differentiation induction is also a key link in organ construction. The reconstructed embryo is developed to the blastocyst stage, the inner cell mass is separated from it, and further induced to differentiate into kidney-specific stem cells, then place these stem cells in a bioreactor or three-dimensional culture system that simulates the physiological environment in the body, follow specific signal pathways and growth factor gradients, and gradually differentiate into various types of kidney cells, including glomerular podocytes and tubular epithelial cells, then arrange and assemble them in an orderly manner according to the natural tissue structure of the kidney, and finally develop into a kidney organ with complete physiological functions. The whole process is like an exquisite symphony, which requires close cooperation of various technical links. Only in this way can the magnificent chapter of life remodeling be played." Having said that, Chu Jinming immediately looked at Xiao Yu and said, "Brother-in-law, I want to do this research topic, what do you think?" Xiao Yu nodded and smiled without thinking, "Of course, no problem. I promised you before that I could let you lead a project alone. You just go and do it, and you can use any resources in the department if you like it." Hearing this, Chu Jinming was immediately delighted. "Great, thank you, brother-in-law." Xiao Yu smiled but said nothing. This was part of his plan, but there was no need to tell her. Now it seems that the guidance was very successful. At this moment, the two heard a knock on the door. "Come in," Xiao Yu said, and glanced at the door of the office. The person who came in was Yun Shu. She closed the door and walked slowly. Yun Shu soon noticed another slender figure sitting with her back to her. When her eyes just focused on it, Chu Jinming also turned her head to look over. When Yun Shu saw Chu Jinming's face, she was stunned on the spot, with a bit of surprise in her eyes. Chu Jinming also looked at her in confusion when she saw this situation. Xiao Yu, who was standing aside, saw Yun Shu's surprised expression and immediately realized that she had recognized the wrong person and thought Chu Jinming was Chu Jintang. "Oh, let me introduce you, this is Chu Jingmen, Jintang's sister. They are twin sisters. She just graduated with a doctorate, and now comes to work here, in the bioengineering department," Xiao Yu said with a smile. Although Yun Shu had been with Xiao Yu since his early days, she didn't know much about his family. Yun Shu knew that Chu Jintang had a younger sister, but she didn't know they were twins, and she didn't know they looked so similar. This was the first time they met, so it was no wonder that Yun Shu mistook her for Chu Jintang. "It turns out that I recognized the wrong person." Yun Shu, who was originally stunned, suddenly realized after hearing Xiao Yu's explanation, but she couldn't help but look at Chu Jinming again for a while. And couldn't help saying, "They look alike, really too alike. If you didn't say it, I would have really thought she was Jintang." Xiao Yu turned to glance at Chu Jinming and said, "This is the financial director of Lingjing Technology Company, Yun Shu." The two women looked at each other, and Chu Jinming smiled and said, "Hello." Yun Shu also smiled and replied, "Hello." Chu Jinming immediately turned her head to look at Xiao Yu and said with a smile, "You guys chat, I'll go to the laboratory to prepare for the project research topic." Xiao Yu nodded. "Go." Yun Shu looked at Chu Jinming, who walked out of the office, and suddenly she breathed a sigh of relief in her heart. She was stunned just now, and mistakenly took Chu Jinming for Chu Jintang. She once thought that Xiao Yu and Chu Jintang had reconciled again. Then her relationship with Xiao Yu continued to heat up. Wouldn't it be embarrassing? Upon learning that it wasn't Chu Jintang, Yun Shu secretly breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, it was a false alarm. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 183, Sarah AI's Rapid Development Momentum. In the office. This episode passed quickly. Yunshu retracted his gaze and turned to look at Xiao Yu to talk about the company. The company's first dividend resolution has been completed. According to the plan, 1/3 of the net profit of the previous year will be used. The cash dividend this time is 24.304 billion yuan. Yunshu handed the document to Xiao Yu, who signed it decisively without even reading it. Xiao Yu said, "Let's announce it later." Starting this year, Lingjing Technology officially launched cash dividends. According to the original plan and its commitment to the market, the company will take out 1/3 of its net profit every year to distribute dividends to all shareholders. From the scale of the first dividend compared to the company's current market value of more than 10 trillion yuan, the dividend of 24.3 billion yuan is not enough to look at, not even a fraction of the market value. The dividend rate is even only about 0.2%, but what the market really values is not the present, but the next 3 to 5 years. With Lingjing Technology's current high-growth momentum, the future revenue expectations are too imaginative. The scale of cash dividends each year in the future may easily be an astronomical figure of hundreds of billions or even hundreds of billions. By that time, the dividend rate will be high. 2 hours later, the company released an announcement on the 2022 equity distribution plan. Based on the company's existing 86.8 billion shares, a cash dividend of 2.80 yuan, tax included, will be distributed to all shareholders for every 10 shares. No bonus shares will be issued, and no capital reserve will be used to increase capital. A total of 24.304 billion yuan in cash dividends will be distributed. After the announcement of Lingjing Technology's first dividend resolution was disclosed to the public, the company's stock price opened high and fell low the next day. This is mainly due to the weak market environment. On Monday, March 20th, Lingjing Technology stock price fell to 163.18 yuan, and its market value fell back to 14.16 trillion yuan. Compared with the historical high, the cumulative decline has reached -31.97%, and compared with a peak market value of 20.82 trillion yuan, it has lost 6.66 trillion yuan. However, on Tuesday, March 21st, Lingjing Technology stock price began to rebound and entered a month-long rebound. The stock price rebounded to 198.32 yuan, a cumulative rebound of about 21 percentage points, and the company's market value rose to 17.21 trillion yuan. But in mid-April, the A-share market was bearish again, and the market ushered in a continuous sell-off. Lingjing Technology also adjusted downward with the market. The company's daily trading volume has also shrunk to only more than 20 billion yuan. This number is definitely a sky-high level for other A-share listed companies, but it is a land volume for Lingjing Technology, which has a market value of more than 10 trillion yuan. You know, when Lingjing Technology resumed trading at the beginning of the year, the daily trading volume was more than 200 billion or even more than 300 billion yuan, not to mention the epic trading volume of 698.6 billion yuan on the previous day. At present, the A-share market is bearish, and Lingjing Technology is considered to be resistant to declines, and many other heavyweight stocks have already been cut in half. During this period, Xiao Yu did not pay much attention to the stock price trend of Lingjing Technology in the secondary market. After completing the layout of the bioengineering business department, he turned to focus on operating Sarah AI, founded by his stand-in Peter Vitas. Xiao Yu did not forget the Blue Star World. He promised the Red Tide organization that he would provide it with a large amount of food and supplies in the future. The N800 nano-armed black technology has not yet been obtained. His original body cannot be associated with a stand-in Peter Vitas, which requires the stand-in to quickly realize a surge in value and become a super rich man. Only in this way can a large number of food be purchased and transported to the Blue Star World. Xiao Yu is now trying not to use his own identity or the name of Lingjing Technology to trade food and supplies to Blue Star as much as possible to minimize the risk. Therefore, if the stand-in does not rise quickly, it will be difficult to fulfill the promise to the Blue Star World. The way to make money quickly is to quickly let Sarah AI land on the US stock market. This company has only been established in Silicon Valley for a few months, but it is not impossible to complete the listing quickly. Luckin Coffee created a miracle of going public in just 18 months. Xiao Yu thinks that if Sierra AI can have the time and go public in 8 or 9 months, it may not be impossible. Sierra AI is now developing rapidly. By April 15, the number of registered AI users has soared to 65 million. In the European and American regions, Sierra AI's popularity has already surpassed ChatGPT under OpenAI. Its growth momentum is not much worse than that of AI's Xiao last year. After all, Sierra AI is aimed at the global market, while AI's Xiao is only in the Greater China market. Western capital now has high hopes for Peter Vidas. Its mainstream media in Europe and America also report on him in great detail, shaping him into a supernova in the technology circle of the white world. Sierra AI has been valued by European and American capital as a super unicorn worth tens of billions of dollars. In short, it is to give Peter Vidas enough traffic exposure. Obviously, the European and American circles are now too eager to create a supernova in the technology circle to fight against Xiao Yu, the rising power in the East, because this is crucial to them. Only in this way can they explain that the lighthouse of technology is still in the Western world. OpenAI is useless now, and it can't beat Lingjing technology. Moreover, Elon Musk is also related to OpenAI. The big guys behind the scenes in the old Magnesium Squid group don't like Elon Musk very much, and even look down on him. In order to disgust Elon Musk, they even induced the eldest son to become a big daughter, and really gave birth to children. At this time, Peter Vidas' sudden appearance made Magnesium Western Capital look so good. The key is to strive for success. The rising momentum and potential of Sierra AI let Magnesium Western Capital see that it can fight against Xiao Yu and show great potential. Now Magnesium Western Capital has decided to push Peter Vidas to the front and let Sierra AI replace the useless OpenAI. And they really can't wait any longer, otherwise they will be reap the benefits of the long-term layout and investment in the AI field by Xiao Yu's Lingjing technology. North Silicon Valley, Sierra AI headquarters. What did you say? You want Sierra AI to ring the bell on Nasdaq in 2 months? A white middle-aged man looked at Peter Vidas in shock. He was the head of one of Sierra AI's venture capital institutions. Xiao Yu called some of Sierra AI's major capital investors together through his stand-in Peter Vidas to discuss the plan to push Sierra AI to go public at the speed of light. At this time, the stand-in Peter Vidas smiled and looked around at everyone and said lightly, "The potential of Sierra AI should be clear to everyone present, and since you plan to package me as a supernova in the technology circle, it only took more than half a year from the establishment of the company to the listing. Isn't this a legendary feat? This is also one of the means of packaging." Everyone looked at each other, and no one answered for a while. At this time, Peter Vidas proposed a condition that made all the investors present excited. "If we can achieve the listing in 2 months, I am willing to reduce my equity ratio to 15%, as long as the control of the company still belongs to me, and I am allowed to cash out $5 billion during the listing period, and the other 85% of the equity belongs to you. As for how to divide it, you can discuss it yourself. How about it?" As soon as this was said, the investors present could not sit still. In fact, their biggest concern was that after Peter Vidas was promoted, he would take too much equity and too much profit, but they still had to rely on Peter Vidas for technology. That is, they could not touch him, let alone let him try his luck and die. It would be really bad if he died. But now everyone heard that Peter Vidas was willing to take only 15% of the equity benefits. The situation was very different, and it could even be said that it was okay to support him without any worries. Such a deal made them excited on the spot. Chapter 184, Reaching a Consensus. The founders of global technology giants, especially those with trillion-dollar scale, ultimately hold about 10% to 20% of their shares, because they need to share interests with all parties to work together to expand the scale of the company. Unless there is a cheat. Under normal circumstances, it is difficult for a founder to hold more than half of the shares and still reach the trillion-dollar level, which is more obvious in the Western capital world. The important reason why a company cannot grow big if it holds too much equity is that it is easy to be targeted by others, because if you make your company bigger, it will inevitably squeeze the market share of your peers, and capital often holds equity interests in peer companies. If your company squeezes out your peers, and capital does not have enough interests in your company, it will not be able to hedge effectively, and will inevitably suppress it in various ways. At this moment, the investors present heard Peter Vidas' happy trading conditions, and after a brief exchange, they reached a consensus on the spot and agreed to Peter Vedas's 3 conditions. That is, the control of the company still belongs to him, he is allowed to cash out $5 billion, and Sarah AI is listed at light speed within the next 2 months. In exchange, Peter Vedas's shareholding in Sarah AI dropped directly to 15%. As for the other 85% of the shares, it was up to the major capitals to discuss how to divide them. Luckin Coffee was able to create a light-speed listing in 18 months. Sarah AI had to be twice as efficient as Luckin Coffee and go public in half a year. Other companies may find it difficult to do so, but Sarah AI was born at the right time. The company's fundamentals are strong enough. The key is that it has been recognized by all participating capital parties. They will work together to promote the listing, and there will basically be no major resistance. As long as the listing of Sarah AI is completed and $5 billion is cashed out, Xiao Yu's next plan is to use a stand-in to fulfill the promise of supplying 2 million tons of food and materials to the Red Tide organization of the Blue Star world every year. According to the current grain market purchase price, the value of 2 million tons of food and materials is about $800 million. With a $5 billion cashed out, it will be enough for the next few years. However, the motivation for the stand-in Peter Veras to spend so much money to purchase so much food and supplies must have a reasonable explanation, otherwise it will definitely make the outside world, especially several investment institutions, confused. Xiao Yu has also thought of a countermeasure for this, and the answer is 2 words: charity. In order to cover up the actual motive, the investment institutions can explain that this is to better package their own personality, add a philanthropist's identity, spend some money to purchase food and supplies for charity, and provide some humanitarian assistance worldwide to create a good positive public image for themselves in Sarah AI. The investors will definitely be happy to see this happen when they learn that this is the reason. In the following days, Xiao Yu controlled the stand-in Peter Veras to actively prepare for the listing of Sarah AI, while other matters were also being promoted as planned. The Shenlong fighter project of Avic Linfa E Company is progressing in an orderly manner. And the trillion yuan air rail train project in Linzhou City is also in full swing. The core business of Lingjing Technology is also developing according to Xiao Yu's expectations. The company's current absolute cash flow business, graphene materials, has expanded its production capacity to 10,000 tons this year, and it is still not worried about selling. In terms of the AI business sector, the AI mirror is expected to be fully released in the second half of this year, and all users will be able to use it normally. At the same time, the personal version of the productivity tool will also be available for a fee in the second half of the year. The newly established bioengineering business department has now started to operate initially. Later, we only need to wait for the right time, and the research on single-organ cloning technology will inevitably have a major breakthrough. In addition, Lingjing Technology has 2 important businesses, namely holographic imaging and VR headsets. This project was launched as early as last year, but there is not much progress now, because Xiao Yu has not focused on these 2 areas. The energy is really limited, so we can only let it go for a while. Holographic imaging must be done. This technology not only has huge commercial prospects in itself, but is also the key front-end technology of the smart holographic bracelet. If this is not done, the holographic bracelet will not be able to be made. But there is no rush for this part. After all, the holographic bracelet still has many front-end technologies to light up, and it can only be done step by step. The time came to the end of April. At the villa residence, Xiao Yu came to the villa basement. At the same time, he controlled his stand-in Peter Veras to rest, because he was going to the Blue Star world, and once the teleportation star gate was closed, he would be disconnected from his organic body. In the future, Xiao Yu would have to let his stand-in Peter Veras lie down in advance when he went to the Blue Star. Fortunately, it was nighttime in the Western Hemisphere at this time, which was just the time to go to bed, so he just had to let the stand-in lie down and sleep. At this moment, Xiao Yu opened the teleportation star gate, and he first arrived at the Blue Star world, then reopened the teleportation star gate again and returned to Earth. When he returned to Earth again, he was not on the basement of the villa residence, but appeared in a secret base built 800 meters underground under the 9th villa. Xiao Yu looked around and said with great satisfaction, "Well, it's convenient to have a teleportation gate, and it's also very safe. There's no chance of being exposed. In the future, to enter and exit this underground secret base, you have to follow the same set of procedures. First use the teleportation stargate to go to Blue Star, and then open the teleportation stargate again to return to Earth from the Blue Star world and enter the underground secret base. This is not because Xiao Yu is doing too much, but because he has completely sealed the passage dug in the underground warehouse of the 9th villa from the inside, and there is no second passage extending from the underground to the underground warehouse of the villa where he lives. In other words, this underground base no longer has any passage to come in from the ground, and the passage of the 9th villa has also been completely blocked. At the beginning, Xiao Yu was thinking about digging a passage from the underground to his villa, but fortunately he didn't do it. Because he realized that there was no need to do this at all, and it would be particularly stupid to do so. There is a plug-in like a teleportation stargate, and there is no need for a hammer passage. It is completely possible to block all of them directly, without setting up any passage to the ground, so that this underground base is completely independent 800 meters underground, completely isolated from the ground. In this way, the risk of this underground base being exposed is almost only in theory. No one except Xiao Yu can find it, and no one can enter it, only Xiao Yu himself. And there is only one way to enter and exit, that is, through the teleportation stargate, with a Blue Star world as the transfer. In this way, the security and confidentiality index is directly maxed out. Chapter 185, let's just call you Xiao Lan. Underground base. Xiao Yu wandered around the underground base for a while. Except for Xiao Yu, who was from Earth, all other facilities had nothing to do with Earth. All the equipment was from the Blue Star world. Here, Xiao Yu could rest assured without any worries, and there was no need to worry about the risk of the black technology from the Blue Star world leaking out. If another Earthling appeared here, he would be shocked by the scene in front of him, because the various high-tech elements of this underground base were too advanced. After all, the scientific and technological productivity of the Blue Star world is hundreds of years ahead of the Earth. It took only half a year to build such a large underground laboratory from scratch. Xiao Yu couldn't help but sigh, and then came to the base control room. Xiao Yu came to the middle of the console, and suddenly more than a dozen holographic floating display panels were projected. The basic information of this underground base was clearly visible in front of Xiao Yu. He had the highest authority, and the central system of the base was hosted by an artificial intelligence. At this moment, Xiao Yu looked at one of the holographic panels showing the information that the AI agent of the central system was initializing. After waiting for a few minutes, an electronic synthesized voice came from the control room. System initialization completed, startup completed. Xiao Yu folded his arms and fell into a period of thought. Let me think about it, give you a name. After a moment, he immediately decided, let's call you Xiao Lan. Xiao Yu didn't worry too much about the name code of the AI agent of the underground base. Since it was a product of the Blue Star world, he named it Xiao Lan. After a while, the system AI quickly responded to Xiao Yu's instructions and changed its name to Xiao Lan as the system name. This underground base has a total of 6 floors built so far, and it can be expanded in the future when needed. Xiao Yu looked at the basic information of the base. The data showed that the area of each floor reached 20,000 square meters. The deck area of the Ford-class aircraft carrier of Lau Mei was only 19,500 square meters. The area of each floor of the base was 500 square meters larger than the double area of a Ford-class aircraft carrier. The 6-story structure has an area of about 20,000 square meters on each floor, which means that the total area of the entire underground base has reached 120,000 square meters. The control center where Xiao Yu is now is located on the 3rd floor of this base, in the center of the base. By the way, Xiao Lan, start the virtual reality simulation background, and ask for a beach and seascape style scene. Xiao Yu suddenly thought of this and said immediately. He almost forgot that this underground base has the ability of holographic simulation projection. As soon as his voice fell, the system Xiao Lan immediately started the holographic projection simulation function according to Xiao Yu's request. After a while, Xiao Yu saw the scene in front of him began to change, presenting a beach and seascape. The simulated floor-to-ceiling window was a beautiful sea. Not only was the visual impact strong, it was impossible to distinguish between true and false, and the beach sound was also simulated. The naked eye could not tell whether it was real or virtual. Xiao Yu was very satisfied. Not bad. Let's use this scene for a while. You can also change the background of other styles at any time when you get tired of it. The base is 800 meters underground, completely isolated from the outside world. Xiao Yu doesn't like such a claustrophobic space, but the advanced holographic projection technology of the Blue Star world can visually present a scene that is no different from the ground. Moreover, the panoramic simulation is super real. After starting the holographic projection scene simulation, some windows can still feel the breath of wind. This is thanks to the ventilation system inside the base, which will enhance the reality simulation interaction according to the scene simulation environment. It must be said that the virtual reality technology of the Blue Star world is very advanced. Through the virtual world built by holographic projection technology and virtual reality technology, users can enter a completely different virtual network space by wearing a special HUD display device. That is, the virtual internet of the Blue Star world is a more immersive interactive experience, which Xiao Yu has also experienced in the Blue Star world. For example, in the virtual internet, the Blue Star world also has e-commerce platforms similar to Taobao and Jingdong on Earth. Through holographic projection and virtual reality technology, such e-commerce platforms are built into virtual hypermarket. In this virtual hypermarket space, users can see a wide range of goods and even interact with virtual stall owners. The stall owners in the virtual store are actually the sellers of the e-commerce platform. The stall owners may be real people with virtual identities in the virtual internet world, or they may be generated by robots managed by AI. In the virtual e-commerce platform store, although the dazzling array of goods are simulated and are essentially a bunch of data, they are one-to-one with the real objects in reality. The products that buyers order in the virtual store look like the products that are delivered offline. This interactive experience of the virtual internet space is too sci-fi for Earthlings. The holographic projection technology and virtual reality technology in the Blue Star world have long been widely used in various scenarios. This is just one of them. At this moment, Xiao Yu touched many floating holographic projection screens on the console. This base is completely isolated from the outside world. There is no way to directly connect to the ground. The air environment inside the base cannot participate in the circulation with the atmosphere on the surface of the Earth. Therefore, an air purification system is needed. This is combined with a ventilation system in the base. The air for people to breathe, especially oxygen, needs to be supplemented from the outside. This is not a big problem. A full supply of oxygen can supply the consumption of the entire base for 20 to 30 years. Because inside this base, Xiao Yu is the only one who consumes oxygen, and there won't be too many lives that consume oxygen, so the oxygen can't be used up at all. In terms of the energy system, the energy that maintains the operation of this underground base is provided by the controlled nuclear fusion of the Blue Star world. The fusion energy provides power energy support for the entire underground base, and the controlled nuclear fusion core in the base can support energy consumption for up to a century. It is normal to be able to operate for a century at any time using nuclear fusion energy. In addition, there is emergency backup energy, and there are high energy density batteries as emergency backup energy reserves. This base is 800 meters deep underground and is completely isolated from the outside world. The possibility of exposure is almost zero, so Xiao Yu has nothing to worry about. He can move all kinds of black technologies in the Blue Star world to the base without any worries. The site has been settled. Next, we should get a set of manufacturing equipment for the organic body, and a set of super quantum computers for future use, Xiao Yu said to himself and nodded. At present, this underground base is like a built empty house, but there is no furniture yet. Xiao Yu's next step is to complete the furniture. First of all, the production and manufacturing room of the organic body needs to be arranged for future use. The technology has been mastered, and it only needs to be purchased again, and then built in this base, and it can be directly used when needed in the future. Chapter 186, Second Stand-In. In the underground base, Xiao Yu opened the teleportation stargate, and he came to the Blue Star world again, but he did not appear in Fenquan City in Hongzhou Heaven. Instead, he came to country in Yanzhou again. Xiao Yu worked here for a while and repurchased the equipment and materials needed for the organic body. It took about 3 months, and all the required equipment was purchased. Then all were packed and brought back to the underground base, and a biotechnology laboratory was built on the 5th floor of the base. In addition, Xiao Yu also purchased a batch of multiple models of robots from Vera's industrial group in the Blue Star world for assembly and work in the underground base. Xiao Yu also debugged the AI intelligent bodies of these robots, and he was relieved to use them in the underground base on the Earth, because after this batch of robots came to the Earth, He did not intend to let them set foot in the Blue Star world and stay in the underground base on the Earth forever. Even if there is still a backdoor, the data cannot be transmitted to the Blue Star world, so it can be used with confidence. 10 days later, the manufacturing room for the organic body was successfully built in the underground base. In the current underground base, besides Xiao Yu, there are many robots, with a total of 22 models. Each model of robot has different functions. Some are responsible for equipment assembly, and some are responsible for the maintenance of the base. Most robots are floating in the corridors of the base. The facilities of the entire underground base are extremely sci-fi. The body materials of these robots are obviously made of a large amount of room temperature, superconducting materials. In this underground base, Xiao Yu will not have any concerns. In the air rail train project, room temperature superconducting materials are very scarce, but here, the room temperature superconducting materials on any robot can account for more than 30%. There are only tens of millions of star yuan left. Xiao Yu looked at the account balance displayed on the floating panel and suddenly felt that the funds were a bit tight. In the past few months, the purchase of organic body equipment and robots, including hibernation cabins and other equipment, intelligent operating tables, etc., has cost more than 10 billion star yuan. Xiao Yu also wanted to purchase a super quantum computer to assemble in the underground base, but this thing is not cheap. Xiao Yu consulted the price and found that a quantum supercomputer requires hundreds of millions of star yuan to buy. I have to continue making money on Blue Star, Xiao Yu said to himself. After a while, he remembered the prism technology he founded in Hongzhou Heavenly Kingdom, and also remembered the beautiful Yanlingjin in the Blue Star world. Xiao Yu roughly calculated the time. It has been about 4 years since he met and said goodbye to her last time in Yangxingzhou. However, these 4 years are relative to Xiao Yu. From Yanlingjin's perspective, only about 3.5 years have passed on the current Blue Star timeline. Xiao Yu spent the extra half a year on Earth. So Xiao Yu has actually spent 4 years, of which about 3.5 years were spent in the Blue Star world, and the other half a year was spent on the Earth timeline. There is a 500-fold difference in the speed of time between the two worlds. It's time to go back to Fenquan City in Hongzhou. I wonder if Yanlingjin is still in Prism Company, Xiao Yu thought secretly. Maybe the Red Tide organization thought he had obtained the technology of organic body and directly lost contact and ran away. Since saying goodbye to Yanlingjin last time, he has been out of touch? He has not contacted her or Luo Guanqi of Prism Company. After a while, Xiao Yu reopened the teleportation stargate, transited from the Blue Star world, and returned from the underground base to the private laboratory in the basement of the villa residence. When he came to the living room on the first floor, Xiao Yu called the housekeeper over. Uncle Qin, go and purchase the items on this list, and prepare a month's worth of food for me. Put it all in my laboratory. I will stay in there for the next month and will not see anyone during this period. I will be in seclusion for research for a while. Xiao Yu gave such instructions, and at the same time handed a prepared list to Qin Yu. In addition to about a month's worth of food, there were also about 10 tons of grain seeds, melons, fruits and vegetable seeds. Qin Yu didn't say anything after hearing this. He took the list and nodded and replied, "Okay, I'll do it right away." 2 days later, Qin Yu took the lead in preparing a month's worth of food and sent it to the laboratory in the villa's underground warehouse. Xiao Yu had to take a month's worth of food and the so-called seclusion for a month without seeing anyone. The reason was that he wanted to create a second substitute for himself, or to be more precise, multiple new substitutes. During this period, Xiao Yu also had to sleep for a month at the same time, because this time he was on Earth to complete the manufacture of a new organic body and establish a connection and resonance with the original body, so he must not see anyone during this period. Naturally, he had to find a reason not to see anyone, that is, to study technology in seclusion. This morning, Xiao Yu went to the headquarters of Lingjing Technology to give some instructions, and then went to Avic Linfa E Company to give some instructions, including the substitute Peter Vitas in Bima East Silicon Valley. After all these were arranged, in the afternoon, he took a month's worth of food to the Blue Star world, and then teleported to the underground laboratory again. In the biological laboratory on the 5th floor of the underground base, Xiao Yu took a sample of somatic cells from his body. This time, the new substitute he was going to create was obviously exactly the same as his original body. A robot next to him took the sample. Half an hour later, Xiao Yu used some nerve enhancers and entered a cabin. In the next month or so, the second organic body will be cultivated and manufactured, and Xiao Yu will also fall asleep. The robots in the underground base were busy in an orderly manner. In addition to cultivating and manufacturing organic bodies, this biological laboratory was also cultivating clones of many single organs in vitro. This was another instruction Xiao Yu gave to the robot before he fell asleep. Obviously, he was cultivating single organ backups for his original body in case of emergency. If Xiao Yu's original body had any accidental injuries in the future, he could respond immediately without waiting for another month to cultivate organs for transplantation in vitro. After these backup cloned organs are cultivated and developed to the adult stage in vitro, they will be sealed in cryogenic dormancy. The Blue Star world has also realized cryogenic dormancy technology a long time ago. This technology is relatively easy to obtain. As long as you have money, you can buy it in the Blue Star world. Xiao Yu had purchased several sets of cryogenic freezing equipment before. Not only can single cloned organs be cryogenically dormant and sealed, but also the complete organic body can be cryogenically dormant. This time, Xiao Yu not only arranged a complete set of single cloned organs for himself, but also planned to make several more substitutes at the same time, and then place them in the cryogenic dormant chamber for storage as backup. In the future, if you need to use an additional substitute, you don't have to go through the trouble of sleeping for another month to make it. When you need it, you can directly wake one up from the cryogenic dormant chamber and use it. When you don't need it, just let it dormant. Chapter 187, Reunion. Blue Star World. Fengquan City, Zhongzhou Heavenly Kingdom, afternoon local time. In a small building in the city, Yan Lingjun was meeting with another informant from the Red Tide organization. It's been more than 3 years, and Xiao Yu is still out of contact. Has he not contacted you yet? The informant asked. Yan Lingjun shook her head. No, she couldn't help but sighed sadly when she answered. Since she said goodbye in Yanzhou last time, she has been waiting for Xiao Yu to contact her again, but now so many years have passed, there is still no news. It seems that there is no hope. The superiors decided to give him organic body technology. Several people have also been criticized. Maybe you will also be implicated to a certain extent, the informant next to him said so. This matter has caused a lot of controversy within the Red Tide organization. When the transaction was made, some people were also opposed. They felt that there was not much guarantee and had reservations about the act of courtesy first. But in the end, it was decided to provide technology first. Now so many years have passed, Xiao Yu has nothing except a small bag of seeds for breeding. There has been no news so far, which is considered a major misjudgment by the Red Tide organization. The people who made this decision were also embarrassed. At this time, Yan Lingjun couldn't help but say, I believe he is not that kind of person, and there is no reason. Let's take a step back and say that he hasn't got the N800 nano weapon yet. Maybe he has encountered some problems or resistance. After all, it must not be easy for him to do this, the informant immediately retorted. Even if there is a huge resistance, it won't be completely lost for more than 3 years, right? After this, Yan Lingjun was speechless for a while. She couldn't help but recall the scene of the kiss goodbye more than 3 years ago. Deep in her heart, she still couldn't accept that Xiao Yu would lose contact. Yan Lingjun thought of the short time they spent together in Yanzhou, the various exchanges with him, and the wisdom and thought realm that Xiao Yu showed. She once again firmly believed that such a person could never be a fraud. At last, Yan Lingjun murmured softly, anyway, I personally still believe that he is not that kind of person. The informant immediately looked at Yan Lingjun with a strange look, and suddenly said, you are not secretly in love with this person, are you? Yan Lingjun remained silent. There was no news from the person for so many years, and it was useless to say more. She didn't want to explain anything. Seeing this, the informant didn't say anything. However, just when the informant was about to end this meeting, suddenly a message came from Yan Lingjun's holographic bracelet. She casually called up the display panel and took a look. The next moment, her eyes suddenly widened, and her face was full of disbelief. For a time, she thought she had seen it wrong. What's going on? The informant saw Yan Lingjun's sudden loss of mood and showed a look of surprise. Yan Lingjun suppressed his excitement and looked at the informant and said, it's Xiao Yu, he finally contacted me. After this, the informant couldn't help but be surprised, and hurriedly said, is it really him? Both of them were extremely surprised. It was so sudden that Yan Lingjun nodded repeatedly and said with great joy, "It's him, right? He sent me a message and asked me to go to his residence now, which means he is in Fenquin City now." After that, Yan Lingjun pushed the holographic screen panel in front of the informant and let him see it with his own eyes. It was indeed Xiao Yu who sent Yan Lingjun a text message, asking her to meet him at his villa now. "Okay, that's great, we finally got in touch." The informant was also very excited, and immediately looked at Yan Lingjun and said, "Then you go to see him immediately, and I will report this news as soon as possible, and we will act separately." "Yes," Yan Lingjun nodded. After a while, she went directly to Xiao Yu's villa in Fenquin City. Thinking of meeting him again after many years, Yan Lingjun couldn't help herself for a while, and the sad expression on her face disappeared unconsciously, replaced by a delicate face blooming and great expectation. What made Yan Lingjun quite curious was how Xiao Yu suddenly appeared in Fenquin City without any signs. But it didn't matter. What mattered was that there was finally news of this man. About 20 minutes later, Yan Lingjun came to Xiao Yu's villa and entered the house. The housekeeper robot beauty number 18 took her to the large living room on the first floor of the villa. Yan Lingjun immediately saw a back figure standing by the window, and her emotions surged for a while. "Master, Ms. Yan is here?" the housekeeper robot beauty said. At this time, Yan Lingjun was staring at the back figure, and soon saw her turn around, and finally saw her face clearly. Who else could it be but Xiao Yu? Xiao Yu walked slowly and came to Yan Lingjun, looking into her eyes and smiling, saying, "Long time no see, I didn't expect it to be more than 3 years." Yan Lingjun stared at Xiao Yu, her eyes moving, and she was silent for a long time. Finally, Yan Lingjun opened her almond lips and said, "I want to know, is the you standing in front of me you or your incarnation?" Xiao Yu was also slightly stunned when he heard this, and then smiled again, saying, "Whether it is the original body or the substitute, they all carry the only will, the only consciousness, and the only soul. Why bother about the original body or the substitute?" Just as Xiao Yu finished speaking, Yan Lingjun suddenly threw herself into his arms without saying a word, and put her arms around his neck. After the last kiss and parting, and then meeting again after many years, Yan Lingjun didn't want to suppress her inner feelings and became extremely active, and Xiao Yu also took the initiative to hold her waist, obviously making a decision and choosing her. His move made Yan Lingjun very happy, because this move gave her a clear signal that Xiao Yu was also interested. Yan Lingjun decisively took the initiative to further launch an offensive and decided to have a substantial relationship with Xiao Yu today and confirm the relationship. However, Xiao Yu was stunned for a moment, and hurriedly stopped him and said, "Not today." Yan Lingjun looked at him. "Why?" Hearing this, Xiao Yu explained, Well, I am a substitute. I am in charge of food supplies and cannot get away for the time being, so I can't come." After Xiao Yu said this, he thought to himself that if he had known that such a thing would happen, he should have let the real body show up. However, when Yan Lingjun heard this, he immediately said disapprovingly, "It doesn't matter, I don't care. Didn't you say that both the real body and the substitute have the only will, the only consciousness, and the only soul? If so, why bother? Anyway, I can empathize with this substitute." After saying this, Yan Lingjun was about to take the initiative to attack again. Xiao Yu stopped him immediately and said solemnly, "I care because I value you. Anyway, this kind of thing can't be done so carelessly, not to mention it's the first time. The first time should have a sense of ceremony." Although the substitute can also feel the same, there is not much difference, but Xiao Yu always feels a little weird, as if he is cheating on himself. This way of opening is really a bit outrageous. Xiao Yu, who is very receptive to new things, chose to be conservative about this matter. Chapter 188, The Truth. Yan Lingjun was a little surprised to hear Xiao Yu's explanation, but she was also very happy to know that he cared so much, and to feel that she was valued by the person she cared about. "Well, I can only wait until your real body comes." Yan Lingjun looked at Xiao Yu and couldn't help but blooming, her eyes flowing, showing her charming color. This time the two met again, and the scene happened, which can be regarded as a clear relationship. Xiao Yu chose to establish this relationship with Yan Lingjun, which was not pure at the beginning, in order to better gain a foothold in the Blue Star world, but these two things are not in conflict. After a while, the two of them also tacitly skipped the matter of personal feelings. The vague relationship has been determined, which is enough. Both of them have more important things. After all, Yan Lingjin is a member of the Red Tide organization and has to fight for his own revolutionary cause. Xiao Yu is not a human being in the Blue Star world, and his career on Earth is also inseparable from the layout of the Blue Star world. Finally, Xiao Yu looked at Yan Lingjin and said apologetically, "I'm sorry, I have been completely out of touch for the past few years." Hearing this, Yan Lingjin couldn't help but smile, shook his head and looked at him, and said gently with understanding, "It's okay. I believe you definitely didn't mean it. It must be forced by the situation." Xiao Yu said slowly, "It's really not easy. In order to fulfill the original promise, it is really troublesome and laborious. In order to be safe, a lot of arrangements need to be made." Yan Lingjin couldn't help but say, "Remember to pay attention to safety, and don't be discovered by the Heavenly Kingdom Secret Service Agency. Your choice to stand on the side of the Red Tide organization means being an enemy of the Heavenly Kingdom, and there is no room for mediation." Obviously, Yan Lingjin thought that Xiao Yu was making arrangements and plans to prepare food and supplies for the Red Tide organization in recent years, and thought that this was a very dangerous thing, and was also worried about Xiao Yu. But she guessed wrong, and she was right. Xiao Yu was very safe, because he had not been active in the Kingdom of Heaven at all, but he was indeed planning to prepare a large amount of food and supplies for the Red Tide organization, and to create the first stand-in. Peter Vita's established Sarah AI in North Magnesium Silicon Valley. A big factor was to prepare food and supplies for transportation to the Blue Star world. Xiao Yu smiled and said, "Don't worry about me, it's not a big problem. With the Avatar technology provided by the Red Tide organization, I will not be in danger no matter what." Yan Lingjin was relieved when he heard this. With an Avatar, safety is indeed guaranteed, and there is basically no need to worry about safety issues. As long as the main body is not in danger, the Avatar is gone, and it will not harm the main body. Even if the Avatar is destroyed, it will be a big deal to create a new one. At this time, Xiao Yu asked with a little curiosity, "By the way, how has the Red Tide organization developed in the past few years?" Hearing this, Yan Lingjin sighed lightly, "It is still very difficult. The power of the Kingdom of Heaven is too strong. The situation of the enemy being strong and we being weak has not changed fundamentally. The current strategy of the organization is still to preserve the living force and develop and grow. This revolution is destined to be a long one." Xiao Yu nodded silently and said nothing. After all, the situation in the Blue Star world is different from that on Earth. The scientific and technological productivity is so advanced. Although revolutions and rebellions broke out in the Kingdom of Heaven, except for the war zone, most of the controlled areas of the Kingdom of Heaven, especially the core areas, have not been greatly affected. Even the entire state machine has not completely transformed into military industry to fully explode troops to deal with the war. It can be seen from this that the war potential of the Kingdom of Heaven has not been fully released, which means that it is not yet time for the rulers of the Kingdom of Heaven to break through the defense and get angry. On the other hand, the situation faced by the Red Tide organization is very difficult, even difficult to move forward. In the world of Blue Star with such advanced technology, the human wave tactics are useless. Even if human warriors have Iron Will, it is not very effective, because the enemy dispatches the Iron Legion, and the main force of the combat force is the Intelligent Machinery Legion, which is a variety of unmanned intelligent war machines. The Iron Will of human beings can't beat the steel that already has will at all, because the war damage cannot be exchanged. As long as the industrial production capacity and logistics of the Kingdom of Heaven are not affected, intelligent combat machinery can be continuously mass-produced from the industrial assembly line. It can even be as fast as a few minutes to get a set of intelligent combat machinery units off the production line and immediately put into the war. But a human warrior can't add one in a few minutes. When people and robots exchange war damage, even if a human warrior exchanges 100 mechanical combat units, it is a loss, and it can't be consumed at all. One less person is one less, and the intelligent combat units can be said to be endless. Fortunately, Linen's defection and joining the Red Tide organization brought a series of military technologies to it, including top technologies such as N-800 nano-weapons, which created a group of top combat forces for the Red Tide organization. Those N-800 nano-armed warriors are so powerful that they rush into the enemy's intelligent machine army and slaughter them unilaterally, as if they were unparalleled. The only one who can control these super soldiers is another N-800 nano-armed super soldier. Linen's joining and bringing these helpers have given the Red Tide organization a certain survival capital in the face of the encirclement and suppression of the Heavenly Kingdom army, Otherwise it would have been wiped out long ago. At this moment, Yan Lingjun looked at Xiao Yu and smiled, but the crop seeds you provided at the beginning also made us very excited. Although the quantity is small and cannot be planted on a large scale in the short term, the most important thing is to inspire people and let everyone see hope. Having hope is more important than anything else. In a sense, what the Red Tide organization needs most now is hope. Xiao Yu pondered in his heart, and then couldn't help but say, there must be scientists and researchers in your organization. Haven't they cracked the breeding gene shackles that the Kingdom of Heaven has locked the plants? Hearing this, Yan Lingjun sighed lightly and said slowly, the characteristics of biological genetic technology are prone to genetic disasters. The lessons of several biochemical disasters that have broken out in history are painful. Our scientists are very cautious, and our scientific research capabilities are seriously insufficient, so we have not been able to crack it so far. Moreover, the ecological collapse event of more than 100 years was created by the current ruling interest groups. The extreme pathogens that specialize in plant chloroplasts are not natural disasters, but outright man-made disasters. They discovered this extreme pathogen in nature, and then secretly studied human intervention to amplify this ability, creating a more terrifying spread and destructive power, releasing it into nature and quickly sweeping the world. They created this disaster, and then tried their best to cover up the truth, and then transformed themselves into saviors, claiming to rebuild a kingdom of heaven, and not only the rulers of the kingdom of heaven are involved, but also the rulers of the major powers in other continents are involved. Yan Lingjun gritted her teeth when she told the truth. In fact, it was after she learned the truth that she realized that her family members had died indirectly because of the kingdom of heaven. In the end, she resolutely joined the Red Tide organization and devoted herself to the revolutionary cause. At this moment, Xiao Yu was silent. His expression did not change, but he was shocked in his heart. Because he did not expect that the super disaster of ecological collapse in the Blue Star world was actually man-made. Thinking back, he instantly felt that the clouds were cleared. No wonder this extreme pathogen has now disappeared strangely, and no wonder the rulers of the Blue Star world, whether the ruling group of the Kingdom of Heaven or other continents, can unanimously reach a consensus on oppressing all living beings and can so stably create food scarcity on a global scale. It turns out that behind this, they have long divided up the Blue Star world together, and all of them are bloody interests. Chapter 189, Surprise. Xiao Yu couldn't help but sigh in his heart, and couldn't help but think emotionally, it's really a sin, it's inhumane. Billions of people died because of such a horrific man-made disaster. Knowing this truth, Xiao Yu felt that if he was a native of the Blue Star world, he would definitely rebel without hesitation. After a while, Yan Lingjun skipped this topic. She turned her head and looked at Xiao Yu and said, by the way, what's the matter with you contacting me this time? Hearing this, Xiao Yu put away his thoughts, turned to look at her and smiled. Of course it's a good thing. Yan Lingjun was overjoyed. You have taken care of the supply of food and materials? That's 2 million tons per year. Xiao Yu smiled mysteriously, and then said, let's go, I'll take you to see something. After that, Xiao Yu stood up and motioned Yan Lingjun to follow him. Seeing Xiao Yu like this, Yan Lingjun was also full of expectations. Half an hour later, Xiao Yu brought Yan Lingjun to a storage center in the southwest corner of Fenquin City. This was arranged before contacting her, and it was not known to the Prism Company, and the general manager of the company, Luo Guanqi, was not aware of it. These grains. Yan Lingjun followed Xiao Yu into the warehouse, looked around and turned to look at Xiao Yu. I brought about 10 tons this time. Xiao Yu smiled. Yan Lingjun looked at the grain in front of him again, and was a little disappointed to learn that there were only about 10 tons. He came here with high expectations, but the result was a little below expectations. How could such a small amount of grain be enough for consumption? Compared with 2 million tons, it was just a fraction. Xiao Yu glanced at Yan Lingjun and saw that she was silent. She seemed to have guessed something, and then smiled and said, are you a little disappointed? Don't be anxious, this is not for you to eat. Hearing this, Yan Lingjun looked at him in confusion. What do you mean? But as soon as she finished speaking, she seemed to have guessed something, and immediately looked at Xiao Yu with extraordinary joy and said, you mean, these grains are seeds? Xiao Yu nodded with a smile on his face, and immediately replied, yes, these 10 tons are all grain crop seeds, and they all have the ability to reproduce. Obviously, These 10 tons of grain seeds were exactly what Xiao Yu had instructed his butler Qin Yu to arrange for purchase, and now they were directly transported to the Blue Star world by him. After hearing this, Yan Lingjun was overjoyed after getting the definite answer from Xiao Yu, but then she glared at Xiao Yu unhappily, pretending to be dissatisfied and said, "You just deliberately left your words halfway to provoke me." Xiao Yu smiled and said, "Don't tell me whether it provokes me or not, just tell me whether you are surprised or not." Looking at the seeds placed in the front warehouse again, Yan Lingjun couldn't help but smile, and she didn't hide her happiness. She was so surprised. Xiao Yu added, "Here are mainly grain seeds, all of which are used for planting, which is regarded as an indirect fulfillment of the original promise. In addition to the staple grains, there are also many seeds of fruits and vegetables." Yan Lingjun stepped forward with great joy and held up a handful of grain seeds, saying to himself, "Great." Xiao Yu smiled and said, 2 million tons of grain is too large. And it is difficult to handle the transportation problem in a short time. It is mainly a safety issue. It will take some time to prepare and plan to ensure safe transportation. So this time, I first tried to get 10 tons of grain seeds. The main reason is that Sierra AI, the company established by Xiao Yu's stand-in Peter Vitas, has not grown rapidly. It is currently actively preparing Sierra AI to enter the US stock market and let the stand-in Peter Vitas quickly become a super rich man. This is not something that can be done in a day or two, and it will take time to prepare food supplies afterwards. The scale of 2 million tons of food is not a small amount. Let Peter Vitas, under the pretext of charity and humanitarianism, certainly cannot only get 2 million tons of food, not to mention Xiao Yu promised to provide food supplies to the Red Tide organization for a long time in the future. But relatively speaking, it is much easier to get 10 tons of grain seeds. The quantity is not large, and it is also convenient to transport them to the Blue Star world. At this time, Yan Lingjun, with a face full of joy, turned to look at Xiao Yu and said, "In the long run, these 10 tons of grain seeds are more strategically valuable than 2 million tons of grain supplies. They are not only grain seeds, but also the seeds of this revolutionary cause." The organization will be very excited to hear this news. With these 10 tons of crop seeds with breeding capacity, I believe it won't be long before the Red Tide organization can solve the long-standing shortage of grain supplies and achieve self-sufficiency in food. Xiao Yu immediately said in an orderly manner, "Don't worry. When I further deal with some resistance here, there will be more grain seeds." Hearing this, Yan Lingjun was even more surprised to learn that there would be more grain seeds in the future. She looked at the grain seeds in the warehouse again and said thoughtfully, "With these grain crop seeds, we can distribute them to civilians in the controlled area and let them plant them, so that you can realize your previous idea. This is crucial to the cohesion of people's hearts. This revolutionary cause is likely to usher in an unprecedented historical turning point." Obviously, Yan Lingjun has made great progress since accepting Xiao Yu's ideological indoctrination and has learned a lot of valuable struggle experience. She also knows how strategically significant these grain crop seeds with breeding ability are to the revolutionary cause of the Red Tide organization. Over the years, the team has always been difficult to grow rapidly, that is, it is difficult to gain the support of most civilians. The biggest reason for this is that following you, even eating a mouthful of synthetic starches or luxury, let alone eating a full meal and food freedom. It is naturally extremely difficult to get support. After all, not everyone has lofty consciousness and ideals, and realizing ideals requires the support of most people. Once there are grain crop seeds with breeding ability, it will be very different. Distributing grain crops to civilians for planting will not only allow them to eat enough in the future, but also eat well. Compared with artificial synthetic starch that is difficult to swallow, a bowl of rice is considered a mountain delicacy. The key is food freedom, which undoubtedly has a huge appeal among the civilians in the Blue Star world. Finally, Xiao Yu said slowly, "These grain seeds, among which the rice seeds need to be paid attention to. These seeds can be planted, but the crops grown cannot be used as self-retained seeds for the next round of planting." Yan Lingjun, who was originally overjoyed, could not help but be slightly stunned. When he reacted, he hurriedly said, "Can only one round be planted?" Xiao Yu smiled and said, "Don't worry, listen to me. These rice seeds have been selected through hybridization to select the part with the largest yield. Of course, the next generation of self-retained seeds can also be planted, but the yield will not be as high as the first generation. It may drop by 1/3, it may be less, but it may also be more. In short, there are uncertainties. Hearing this, Yan Lingjun couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief, and then Yan Zun smiled and said, "That's not a big problem. As long as the breeding ability is not locked at the genetic level, even if the yield of the second generation of self-retained seeds is halved, it can be accepted." "This is a situation we didn't dare to think of before," Xiao Yu said. "Your scientists can select and cultivate them from them at that time, and I will continue to provide you with the selected crop seeds." Yan Lingjun nodded slightly, looked at Xiao Yu with a smile and said, "Thank you for taking such a big risk to support this revolutionary cause. I believe the turning point of history has begun at this moment." Hearing this, Xiao Yu couldn't help but smile. Mutual achievement is good. I am not at a loss, right? Not only did I get what I needed, but I also got the beauty unexpectedly. This is definitely a big profit. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 190. The boss has been out of touch for 3 years, but the company has survived and is growing stronger and stronger. After Xiao Yu finished speaking, he put his hand on Yan Lingjun's slender waist and took her into his arms. Yan Lingjun couldn't help but smile in his arms when he heard what he said. The relationship between the two was clarified, and because of this intimate relationship, they established a deeper trust. She was no longer as cautious as before about more information about the Red Tide organization. As long as it was not a matter of principle, she could express her heart to Xiao Yu. However, as long as it involved some extremely important core confidential information of the organization, without authorization, it was still reserved. She would not generalize personal and official matters, which also showed that Yan Lingjun was not a simple love-brained person, and her IQ did not drop sharply because of her personal love. After all, Xiao Yu declined the Red Tide organization's sincere invitation to join, and now she only has a cooperative relationship with the organization. After a while, Yan Lingjun said, "I have to report this good news to the organization as soon as possible. Fortunately, you came on time this time. If you were a little later, I might have been punished severely. After all, this matter started with me." Before this, Xiao Yu lost contact for more than 3 years after obtaining the organic body technology. This also caused the Red Tide organization to gradually lose confidence in him, and even acquiesced that they had been deceived. It was a major internal decision-making mistake. Yan Lingjun smiled, looked up at Xiao Yu and said, "But you are back this time, and you have brought so many grain crop seeds with breeding ability. I think you will not be punished, but you will be rewarded." Xiao Yu smiled and said, "In my opinion, not only is it a meritorious service, but it is also the first meritorious service. It would not be so smooth for someone else." At this point, Xiao Yu looked at Yan Lingjun and couldn't help but add jokingly, "I should say that I have fallen into your beauty trap. Although this is not a subjective plan of you or your organization, it would definitely not be so smooth without your relationship. At least I might want more." Hearing this, Yan Lingjun rolled her eyes at him unhappily, but she couldn't help but blooming her face, which looked particularly charming and moving. It is certain that Yan Lingjun will definitely make a first-class contribution within the Red Tide organization because of this matter, and Xiao Yu is also happy to see it happen. Now that Yan Lingjun has been chosen and the relationship has been confirmed, it is definitely a good thing for her to be valued within the Red Tide organization and get further promotion. In the future, if the organization succeeds in starting a business, it will be more conducive to Xiao Yu's foothold in the Blue Star world. The two of them spent some time together and then separated temporarily. Yan Lingjun was going to report this great good news to the organization. Xiao Yu did not stay at home, but went directly to Prism Company. General Manager Luo Guanqi was also very surprised to receive the news from his boss. Naturally, he put down his work and met Xiao Yu as soon as possible, and reported to him the company's situation over the past 3 years. The company's situation is roughly like this. The core business is still economic and trade. There are currently more than 3,000 employees and about 7 billion in cash on the books. Luo Guanqi was reporting in Xiao Yu's office at this moment. Xiao Yu was very surprised. He had been out of contact for more than 3 years. Without him as the boss, the Prism Company he founded in the Blue Star world not only did not collapse, but also developed very well. Judging from the 7 billion in cash on the books, it is showing a thriving trend. It is worth mentioning that in addition to Luo Guanqi's good management, Yan Lingjun played a key role in the current situation of Prism Company. Because she endorsed her boss's loss of contact, she took the initiative to tell the company's senior management that she was Xiao Yu's lover, thus stabilizing the situation. Another important reason is that Luo Guanqi had long vaguely guessed that Xiao Yu was not an ordinary person. After all, being able to take out so many grain products at will is not something that ordinary people can do. Secondly, Xiao Yu set a very high salary package for Prism Company, and the employees working in the company did not want the company to go bankrupt. Under the influence of this series of comprehensive factors, in the case that Xiao Yu did not provide grain products for sale, Prism Company not only did not go bankrupt, but survived and developed in a gratifying momentum, with more than 7 billion star yuan in cash on the books. This reminded Xiao Yu of a company on his own earth, the company of boss Jia, who always returns to China next week. The boss is abroad and always returns to China next week. The company has no boss and the executives have all run away. But the company did not go bankrupt, and the remaining employees are still working in the company, and they don't have to work 996, and the salary is not low, which is simply a good deal for the employees. At last, Xiao Yu said with satisfaction, "Well done, it has far exceeded my expectations. It will not be excessive to increase your salary tenfold." Hearing this, Luo Guanqi hurriedly smiled and said, "I dare not take the credit for this. Without Assistant Yan, the company would not have survived until now and might have collapsed long ago." Xiao Yu nodded without comment. He had learned that now everyone in the company regarded Yan Lingjun as the boss's wife, and Xiao Yu acquiesced to this. After all, he had already made his relationship with her clear. Then let's do this, Xiao Yu thought for a while, and immediately made a decision. Starting from this month, all employees of the company will double their salaries. Your salary will increase tenfold and you will get 3% of the equity, and other core executives will get triple their salaries and 1% of the equity. Seeing that Xiao Yu made the decision immediately, Luo Guanqi didn't say anything, nor did he shirk anything. He nodded and said, "I understand. Thank you for your approval, Mr. Xiao. Under normal circumstances, if the boss has been out of contact for such a long time and returns again, he may have been sidelined in fact, and his words may not be effective. But at this moment, Xiao Yu has been out of contact for more than 3 years and returned to Prism Company. Obviously, he has not been sidelined, and his words are still counted." In addition to Yan Lingjun helping Xiao Yu manage the company, Luo Guanqi, the general manager, does not want to and dares not overstep his authority. He firmly believes that Xiao Yu is not an ordinary person. He can easily get a large amount of food and material products. And he must be a person with great connections. Moreover, he still couldn't figure out Xiao Yu's background, so he didn't dare to mess around, for fear that he would get into trouble, not to mention that the boss's wife Yan Lingjun was always there. So in the past few years, Luo Guanqi has been running the company honestly, doing his own job well, and taking the salary and benefits, without too many ideas. Xiao Yu was also generous in sharing the results with his subordinates. The first decision he made after returning was to raise the salaries of all members. This was something that had to be done, so that everyone would be more willing to follow Xiao Yu to do business. Not long after, the news that a boss had returned to the company spread internally, and the employees were all surprised, especially the grassroots employees. "The boss is back? What boss is back? Isn't the boss Luo Guanqi?" Many grassroots employees didn't even know that there was a person like Xiao Yu. They always thought that Luo Guanqi was the boss of Prism Company, because before Xiao Yu lost contact, the company had only more than 600 employees, and the others joined the company after he lost contact. But this is not important. What is important is that the company issued a notice internally. As soon as the boss came back, he decided to double the salary of all employees starting from this month. This can be regarded as a greeting gift from Xiao Yu to those who didn't know him after his return. This operation can also immediately impress all employees. All employees will directly double their salaries, starting from doubling their salaries. Even grassroots employees can double their salaries, which is rare. Prism Company's salary and benefits are not low to begin with, and it is rare to double their salaries on this basis. The employees who learned the news were naturally excited and happy. How could they not be happy with a direct salary increase of doubled? When they learned that a new boss suddenly appeared, many people were still worried that there would be some bad changes and the status quo might change. Unexpectedly, There was indeed a change, but the change was an unexpectedly good thing. All employees immediately had no resistance to the boss who suddenly appeared. Chapter 191, 8th Level Up. 2 days later, Yan Lingjun sent the message and reported to his organization about Xiao Yu's return, as well as the intelligence information that he brought 10 tons of grain crop seeds with breeding ability, which could produce more than 2 million tons of grain. This news spread to the organization, causing a huge shock among its top leaders, but more of them were extremely excited. Several people who originally supported the cooperation with Xiao Yu also immediately raised their eyebrows and felt proud. In the more than 3 years since he lost contact, especially in the past 6 months, the people who promoted the cooperation at the beginning also suffered a lot of pressure, and even regretted it. After all, organic incarnation technology is also a secret technology with great strategic value in the Blue Star world. It is not something that is commonplace. This technology is only mastered by the Kingdom of Heaven and the organization, and it is kept strictly confidential. If it weren't for Linen's betrayal of the Kingdom of Heaven and joining the organization would not have this technology. This time Xiao Yu suddenly returned, and also brought 10 tons of grain crop seeds with breeding ability, which greatly exceeded the expectations of the organization. They had already lost confidence in Xiao Yu and were even prepared to be cheated. Xiao Yu not only brought 10 tons of crop seeds, but most importantly, his return meant that there was no problem with the previous cooperation. Yan Lingjun stated in the report that Xiao Yu was secretly raising large-scale food supplies, which made the organization very excited. It can be said that the news of Xiao Yu's return was the most exciting thing for them in the past few years, because the past 3 years have been very difficult. Fengquan City, Xiao Yu's private villa residence. At this moment, Yan Lingjun came to Xiao Yu's house again. The two were sitting together. Yan Lingjun looked at him and said with a smile, "I received a reply from the headquarters and received a major commendation. I was really credited with a first merit. What I didn't expect the most was that I was promoted 8 levels in a row. This kind of promotion has never been seen in the history of my organization. It is the same treatment as Linen's joining. This is the only case before." Yan Lingjun's excitement and joy at this moment were written on his face in front of Xiao Yu without concealment. Xiao Yu didn't know much about the promotion mechanism of the organization, but he could be promoted 8 levels directly. Even if Xiao Yu didn't understand it very well, he knew that this must be a huge promotion. It must be said that Yan Lingjun's contribution to the Red Tide organization this time is too great. The top leaders of the organization obviously know the value of this contribution, because this is very likely to be an extremely important historical turning point for the organization, and its importance is no less than that of Linen's joining. If Linen's joining the organization has been an epic reinforcement of the organization's armed forces, then Yan Lingjun's contribution this time is equivalent to an epic reinforcement of its cohesion, which is of great significance for historical turning points. Previously, it has been impossible to unite the people's hearts and get the support of most civilians. The biggest reason is that it cannot solve the basic demand of civilians to have enough food. But with Xiao Yu bringing a large number of seed crops with breeding ability, the situation is very different. By distributing crop seeds to civilians, we have enough confidence to tell everyone that we can lead everyone to have enough food, not only to eat enough, but also to eat well in the future, and to have food freedom. This has the basis of appeal, and we can get the support of thousands of civilians, and the development of the cause will enter a new historical stage. Xiao Yu looked at Yan Lingjun and smiled. "You have been promoted 8 levels in a row, and your achievements are comparable to Linen. I heard you say before that he is already a core senior executive in the Red Tide organization and an important member of the Central Committee. So, you will also enter the Central Committee. So, how are you going to reward me?" Hearing this, Yan Lingjun covered her mouth and giggled, then looked at Xiao Yu and said with a smile, "Of course I will reward you with my body, but you are not here, so I can only put it aside for the time being." Xiao Yu immediately laughed and said, "That doesn't count. I have already promised it, and you are taking advantage of it." The two of them were just playing around, a short episode. After a while, Xiao Yu asked, "So, you may have to leave the front line and be transferred to work at the headquarters in the future." Hearing this, Yan Lingjun replied, "The reply from the headquarters also asked for my opinion on this matter. I can go to work at the headquarters, or I can continue to work on the front line for a while and then go to the headquarters. In short, let me make the decision myself." Xiao Yu couldn't help but fall into deep thought when he heard this. and then asked her again, "Have you reported our private affairs to the headquarters?" Yan Lingjun shook her head. "No, we haven't revealed our relationship to anyone. Of course, I regarded myself as your lover in Prism Company, and it was a work requirement when I reported to the organization. I just didn't expect that the fake would become real." Hearing this, Xiao Yu thought for a while, and said slowly, "I think your organization's headquarters should know about our actual relationship now and confirm that it is true." Yan Lingjun was stunned. "No way," Xiao Yu immediately said. "Why not? If not, it stands to reason that you would be transferred directly to the headquarters to arrange a new job, instead of letting you choose whether to stay in the front line and work for a while." After these words came out, Yan Lingjun suddenly realized something, and she couldn't help but recall that when she met the informant a few days ago, the other party casually mentioned whether she had fallen in love with Xiao Yu. Thinking back to this incident again, Yan Lingjun couldn't help but say, the headquarters may have really known about it. Xiao Yu was also inferring in his heart that Yan Lingjun was able to get such a big promotion within the organization this time. In addition to the objective factor that her contributions were indeed huge, it was very likely that she also knew about the relationship between him and Yan Lingjun, and because of this matter, the organization paid more attention to her. After all, from the perspective of the organization, this issue must be a good thing that Xiao Yu had previously declined to join. But if he was in a relationship with a senior member of the organization, even if Xiao Yu did not join the organization, it would basically be stable, and there would definitely be no need to worry too much about any changes. Xiao Yu's speculation was not wrong. Although the senior officials within the Red Tide organization had not been confirmed, they had already determined that he had a romantic relationship with Yan Lingjun. And this relationship also affected the final decision of the senior management of the organization. Yan Lingjun was able to directly rocket up 8 levels, and this relationship factor actually accounted for a large weight. At this moment, Xiao Yu looked at Yan Lingjun again and asked with a smile, "What do you think?" Yan Lingjun looked at him and said, "I haven't replied to the headquarters yet. On the one hand, I want the headquarters to make arrangements. After all, it's a bit arrogant to make requests myself. But on the other hand, I want to stay on the front line so that I can continue to be with you and balance my personal life and work. But I'm worried that if I let the headquarters make arrangements, if I am transferred to a new job, I won't be able to be with you." As she spoke, Yan Lingjun also showed a worried look. Quite entangled, she was also troubled by this matter. Chapter 192, This bet will not be wrong. Yan Lingjun immediately looked at Xiao Yu and asked, "What do you think?" Hearing this, Xiao Yu said without hesitation, "Then stay. I also hope you can be by my side, but staying on the front line means staying away from the center, which may have a certain impact on your career prospects." Yan Lingjun saw that Xiao Yu also hoped that she could stay. This was actually the answer she wanted most. She was happy in her heart and said indifferently, "I don't care about those things. That was not my original intention to join the revolution. I care more about not suffering from the pain of separation." Xiao Yu thought about it and looked at her and smiled. "Since your superiors said that you can stay on the front line and continue to work for a while, this may not be a bad thing. On the contrary, it is a good thing. You have been promoted too high all of a sudden and directly entered the center of your organization. You lack sufficient experience. The experience of more experience on the front line will be more helpful for you to work in the center in the future." Listening to Xiao Yu's analysis, Yan Lingjun couldn't help but nodded. She made a decision immediately without any hesitation. "Well, then I'll listen to you. I'll report to the headquarters and propose to continue working on the front line." At this time, Xiao Yu immediately gave her an idea. "It is very likely that your headquarters knows about the relationship between us, so you might as well report this matter directly. As for your work arrangement, you can say that whether you are transferred or continue to stay here depends on the arrangement of the central headquarters. Leaving the decision-making power to your superior will neither appear to be complacent nor arrogant, and will also appear more calm." Xiao Yu smiled and added, "Since they already know the relationship between you and me, I think it is very likely that you will be arranged to stay here for a while. This will not only allow you to have enough experience and training on the front line, but also allow us to stay together without the pain of separation. For your superior, the arrangement for you is equivalent to taking care of both work and care." Hearing Xiao Yu's analysis, Yan Lingjun lowered his eyes and nodded thoughtfully. "That makes sense. This is indeed the most appropriate way." Yan Lingjun immediately looked at Xiao Yu and said with a smile, "It was right to discuss it with you first. You are much more thoughtful than me. It seems that when I encounter such headaches in the future, I should ask you before making a decision." At this time, Xiao Yu was silently thinking, and Yan Lingjun couldn't help but ask curiously, "What's wrong?" Xiao Yu glanced at Yan Lingjun, then said in a deep voice, "I think this may be an assessment of you by your superior organization. This possibility exists. After all, it is not a trivial matter to promote you to such a high position." After this, Yan Lingjun couldn't help but look at him in surprise. "An assessment of me?" Xiao Yu nodded and said, "Yes, because of the powerful technology of organic body, it is entirely possible to take both into account. At most, I can arrange an avatar for you to work in the central headquarters, and you stay in the front line. Isn't this the best of both worlds?" In fact, Xiao Yu just remembered it. This technology is also a top technology that is not passed on to others in the Blue Star world. In Xiao Yu's opinion, Yan Lingjun's current importance and level must be qualified to use this technology. However, there are some things about the Red Tide organization that he still doesn't understand. Yan Lingjun suddenly said, "I don't think the organization will arrange an avatar for me. Even if they do, I absolutely cannot accept it." Hearing this, Xiao Yu looked at her in surprise. "What do you mean?" Yan Lingjun said slowly, "You are not a member of the organization, so it's normal that you don't understand the reason. Although the organization has mastered this technology, there are no conditions for everyone to use it. Therefore, several important officials of the central headquarters have refused to use avatars. Although this technology can objectively protect the safety of important people, it has also become a privileged behavior of a few people." She turned to look at Xiao Yu and continued, "If used, it will greatly damage the internal cohesion. Therefore, several important officials of the central headquarters do not actually have avatars. In order to adhere to this principle, 2 very important senior core officials were sacrificed 5 years ago. They were both co-founders of the organization." Xiao Yu was also quite surprised to hear her say this. He always thought that the senior officials of the Red Tide organization must have avatars. He didn't expect that they would refuse to use this technology to protect their own safety. Yan Lingjun added, "If only a few people such as the core leaders are allowed to use this technology, it will bring an extremely fatal blow to the organization, which is equivalent to fundamentally denying the core concept since its establishment." Xiao Yu nodded in realization, and he also looked up to the organization. The incarnation thing does have a great negative effect on such a revolutionary organization. The core leaders are very clear-headed and far-sighted, knowing that if this technology is used, it will definitely backfire. Because the biggest source of power supporting the organization is relying on ideals and beliefs, if the core members use this technology, it will inevitably shake the beliefs of the grassroots members, and they will subconsciously ask themselves why they can enjoy the privileged treatment of worrying about their lives while they fight for their lives on the front line. As Yan Lingjun said, once a few core members of the Red Tide organization use this technology, it is equivalent to denying the core concept of no distinction between high and low, no suffering and exploitation, and all people are born equal proposed by the organization since its establishment. If only a few people can use it, doesn't this mean that there is still a distinction between high and low? Isn't everyone still unequal? Then the core concept of the establishment would become a ridiculous lie, no one would believe it, and the organization would never be able to achieve anything significant. Its key figures obviously saw this. This was the first time that Xiao Yu learned about this. After listening to Yan Lingjun's explanation, he couldn't help but say, "Well, then it really can't be used. I take back what I just said. Since I can't use an organic body, I can't be in the center and on the front line at the same time." At this point, Xiao Yu smiled and said, "Hearing what you said, I have more confidence in the Red Tide organization. It will definitely be a force to be reckoned with in the future. No wonder you are a relatively weak force. The army of the Kingdom of Heaven has attacked you the most ruthlessly. If I were the ruler of the Kingdom of Heaven, I would also be unable to sleep at night." Hearing his high evaluation, Yan Lingjun also smiled and said slowly, "In fact, the ones who most hope that the central personnel will use organic body technology are not within us, but our arch-enemy, the Kingdom of Heaven. The news that the rulers of the Kingdom of Heaven want to hear most is that the top leaders of our organization have used organic bodies." Xiao Yu nodded when he heard it. This seemed to strengthen the protection of the key members of the Red Tide organization, but in fact it was destroying the foundation of the organization. If it had been really used, it would have inevitably destroyed people's faith, and people's hearts would have been scattered, and there would have been no cohesion. The force is already weak, and if people's hearts were scattered, it would have collapsed at the first blow, and there would have been no way it could have survived until now. Yan Lingjun sighed slowly and said, the two core senior officials who sacrificed their lives 5 years ago died heroically in order to maintain the morale and cohesion of the organization. At that time, the Kingdom of Heaven launched a propaganda war to spread rumors that our senior officials used incarnations in order to shake people's hearts, which caused an extremely serious ideological crisis at the time. Through their heroic sacrifices, the two core senior officials dispelled the rumors and reunited the people's hearts internally. The Kingdom of Heaven did not expect this to happen. They were furious, and the intensity of their crackdown on our organization became more severe. It can be said that it has increased exponentially, but we still exist today. Xiao Yu couldn't help but say, it seems that they are furious, and the intensity of their crackdown has increased exponentially, but it also indirectly shows that the Kingdom of Heaven is more afraid of you. Yan Lingjun nodded, yes, the sacrifice of the two founding senior officials was not in vain. Their sacrifice has made the organization more united. Through the conversation with Yan Lingjun, Xiao Yu learned more about the Red Tide organization, and he was more convinced that the organization would definitely achieve great things. It would be difficult for such a momentum not to achieve great things. To use an old saying from my hometown to describe it, this is the destiny of heaven, and the organization that can overthrow the Kingdom of Heaven must be this organization. Xiao Yu is more confident that he will not make a mistake in betting on this organization in the Blue Star world. Chapter 193, Revisiting Qingyang Town. Xiao Yu skipped this topic and looked at Yan Lingjun and asked, by the way, when will someone be sent to take away those grain crop seeds? Yan Lingjun next to him immediately replied, 3 days later. Hearing this, Xiao Yu nodded and said, I'll leave this matter to you. I won't care about it anymore. Yan Lingjun nodded and smiled, well, leave the next thing to me. After a while, she looked at Xiao Yu again and added, there is one more thing. The top management invited you to visit our base. You shouldn't refuse this time, right? Xiao Yu thought about it for a while and nodded in agreement, okay, no problem. With the support of the incarnation, Xiao Yu is not worried about safety even if he goes to the capital of the Kingdom of Heaven, Xiantu City, to meet the ruler of the Kingdom of Heaven. Yan Lingjun immediately added, your identity is crucial. Although your current body is an incarnation, it is exactly the same as you. In order to avoid the risk of exposure, you need to change your appearance when you go to our base this time. It is worth mentioning that the core high-level officials of the Red Tide organization all refused to use organic bodies, but they did not directly seal up this powerful technology. In fact, it plays a vital role in some very dangerous espionage work. Yan Lingjun is also one of the personnel engaged in espionage work. She did not use an organic body to carry out her work, which to a certain extent shows that the risk index of her work is relatively low. At this moment, Xiao Yu nodded and said, no problem, I will arrange another incarnation to come later. Fortunately, before coming to the Blue Star world this time, several more incarnation backups had been created, including incarnations with different appearances. Now they are all sealed in the cryogenic hibernation capsule in the underground secret base on the Earth. Only one of the substitutes with different appearances needs to be awakened. At this time, Xiao Yu asked curiously, where's your base? Yan Lingjun smiled mysteriously and said, you have been to that place before. Xiao Yu also smiled and said, I have been to many places. When he first arrived in the Blue Star world, before he founded the Prism Company here, Xiao Yu turned into a frontline salesperson and traveled to many cities in the Kingdom of Heaven and visited many places. Yan Lingjun said, it is Qingyang Town. Hearing her say this place name, Xiao Yu quickly had an impression. Isn't this place his birthpoint in the Blue Star world? His first stop in the Blue Star world was Qingyang Town. Xiao Yu looked at Yan Lingjun in surprise and said, Qingyang Town? I remember that town should be controlled by the Kingdom of Heaven, right? Yan Lingjun next to him looked at each other and smiled. Just 3 years ago, not long after you lost contact, we had already taken over that place. Although it is just a town, the geopolitical strategy is very important. Now Qingyang Town has become a new base for us. Yan Lingjun paused for a moment and added, speaking of which, the works you provided at the beginning provided great help to my organization. They have been tested in practice and are currently being promoted internally. 3 days later. Under Yan Lingjun's arrangement, the 10 tons of grain crop seeds that Xiao Yu brought from Earth were secretly transported out of Fenquin City. As for how they were transported out, Xiao Yu did not know. However, he also saw from this that the intelligence work of the Red Tide organization was not ordinary. Fengquan City was a major core city of the Kingdom of Heaven. It was far away from the war zone and was also in the core hinterland of the Kingdom of Heaven. Not only was there no war, there were no refugees, and normal production operations were not affected. In the past few days, Xiao Yu also privately checked another company he had set up in Xiantu City, only to find that the company was not so lucky and had gone bankrupt 2 years ago. Xiao Yu didn't care. It went bankrupt. It was originally to create an identity with a background for himself in the early stage. Now that he has contacted the Red Tide organization, it is no longer necessary, and the organization will definitely not check his background. Even if they investigate privately, it is impossible to find out that Xiao Yu is an alien. At the same time, Xiao Yu was not idle. He was also arranging Luo Guanqi to do some things, mainly to purchase some local specialties from the Blue Star world and prepare to take them back when they return to Earth. The purchased local specialties include quantum supercomputers and so on. These local specialties are naturally placed in underground secret bases for future use. As time went by, the 5th day passed. Xiao Yu brought another incarnation from Earth, a passerby character with a completely different appearance from his original self. Xiao Yu had to admit that the organic body technology was really useful. With such black technology, some things that were inconvenient to do in person could be handled with ease. That afternoon, Xiao Yu secretly left Fengquan City through Yan Lingjin's arrangement. Before arriving at the town, the aircraft carrying Xiao Yu landed in the wild more than 100 kilometers away from Qingyang town. There was already a team of people here to pick him up. Xiao Yu, who got off the plane, was surprised to see the people who came to pick him up. Boss Liu, Xiao Yu looked at the person who was picking him up in front of him in surprise. It turned out to be Boss Liu, Liu Shiji, who opened a store in Qingyang town. At this moment, Liu Shiji was also stunned for a moment, because he did not recognize Xiao Yu. He knew that his mission this time was to come to pick up Xiao Yu to the base, but he didn't know that he was an incarnation with a different appearance. He is Xiao Yu. In order to avoid exposing his true identity, this is his incarnation, Yan Lingjin also came along on this trip and immediately stepped forward to explain briefly. When Liu Shiji heard this, he suddenly realized it, and immediately looked at Xiao Yu and smiled. So you are the incarnation of Mr. Xiao. I didn't expect that we would meet again after several years. Xiao Yu also smiled and said, I didn't expect that we would meet in this way. At this time, Yan Lingjin on the side immediately urged, this is not the place to talk, let's get in the car and talk at the base. Hearing this, Liu Shiji hurriedly apologized, stopped chatting, and immediately arranged for everyone to get on a floating motorcycle, and then drove away and headed straight for the Qingyang town base. At this moment, on the way to Qingyang town, Xiao Yu in the car looked at Liu Shiji and said, speaking of which, I want to thank Boss Liu. Liu Shiji said in surprise, thank me? What do you mean? Xiao Yu smiled and said, of course I want to thank you for indirectly bringing me a marriage. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't have known Lingjin and fallen in love with him. At this point, Xiao Yu tilted his head and glanced at Yan Lingjin. The two couldn't help but smile at each other. Yan Lingjin had already reported their affairs, so there was no need to hide it. However, Liu Shiji didn't know about this yet. When he heard what Xiao Yu said, he also flashed a few surprised expressions, but he quickly reacted and immediately laughed and said, fate is really wonderful. Along the way, Xiao Yu and Boss Liu exchanged greetings and got closer and closer to Qingyang town. But when they were more than 30 kilometers away from Qingyang town, an accident happened. Liu Shiji received a communication and was shocked after answering it. What? The enemy launched an attack. Xiao Yu couldn't help but be stunned when he heard this. It seems that their base is still the front line. At this moment, Xiao Yu is very calm, because the incarnation that came. Liu Shiji immediately said to the driver, hurry. Go to the base at full speed, the enemy is coming. As soon as he finished speaking, everyone heard the roar of a fighter jet in the air. Xiao Yu felt familiar with this sound. It's the enemy's Xianfeng fighter, someone shouted, and Xiao Yu thought to himself that it was no wonder that he felt familiar. He just cast his eyes to the sky outside the car and saw more than a dozen fighter jets whizzing past his head. Suddenly there was a sharp sonic boom, and these fighter planes disappeared in the sky in an instant, heading straight for the direction of Qingyang town. Chapter 194, It's broken, it's coming towards us. Xiao Yu realized that the situation was not good. He immediately took Yan Lingjun next to him into his arms and used his body to protect her. He came here as an incarnation, so he didn't have to worry. If he died, he died. The original body would not be fatally affected. But he did not forget that Yan Lingjun beside him did not have an incarnation. At this moment, Yan Lingjun seemed calm and did not show panic because of this sudden change. However, the moment Xiao Yu suddenly and quickly protected her in his arms, she couldn't help but feel warm in her heart, so she let him protect her. Suddenly, such a situation happened, and there was no mood to greet each other. Liu Shiji kept urging the driver, "Hurry up! Faster!" On the ground, several floating motorcycles were moving at full speed, and the speed had soared to 500 kilometers per hour. In fact, it could be faster, reaching a speed of more than 800 kilometers per hour, but the current floating height of the motorcycle was almost close to the ground. The current speed is already very dangerous. If you are not careful, you will hit the ground or other obstacles. If you hit something at this speed, the people in the car will definitely be in pieces, bruises, and absolutely dead. At this time, the hovercraft cannot be allowed to climb higher, because there are enemy Xianfeng fighters in the sky. The higher the altitude, the easier it is to be discovered, and it will become a live target for the Xianfeng fighters. Just when the first batch of Xianfeng fighters whizzed past overhead, another batch of Xianfeng fighters passed again, and then the third batch came again. Xiao Yu in the car was shocked that the other party actually dispatched such a large-scale air force. If it were on Earth, dispatching a few sorties would be considered a very large airstrike force, but at this moment, the Air Force of the Kingdom of Heaven dispatched more than a dozen sorties in a wave, and more than one wave, which still brought a great shock to Xiao Yu, an Earthling. At this time, Xiao Yu saw through the window of the car that the third batch of Xianfeng fighters whizzed past in the sky in front of him, and his face suddenly changed, because he saw one of the Xianfeng fighters suddenly slow down and left the flight formation, and landed directly in front and quickly switched to infantry fighting machine mode. Seeing this, Xiao Yu immediately said, "It's bad, they're coming for us." As soon as he finished speaking, two dense matrix-type bullet hole launchers were opened on both sides of the shoulder of the Xianfeng Mecha. The next moment, more than a dozen high-explosive missiles gushed out of the launch holes, flying at high speed in the air with irregular flight trajectories and whistling towards the convoy. In a moment, Xiao Yu in the car heard a rumbling explosion. The destructive power of these missiles was so amazing. The two floating motorcycles in front were destroyed before they could dodge. One of the motorcycles was instantly blown into pieces, and a burst of flames rose to the sky. The violent shock wave also shattered the windows of the motorcycle where Xiao Yu was. "Quick, put on the breathing mask." Xiao Yu held his breath and took the lead in putting on the breathing mask for Yan Lingjun in his arms. It didn't matter that he was using an avatar. Xiao Yu's first priority now was to protect Yan Lingjun's safety without hesitation. Although there is no deadly gas in the outdoor atmosphere of the Blue Star world, it is not a big problem to breathe directly for a few minutes, but you cannot breathe the air in the atmosphere directly for a long time, because the concentration of carbon dioxide in the air is too high, and excessive inhalation will cause carbon dioxide poisoning in the body. In mild cases, it will cause dizziness, shortness of breath, palpitations, and in severe cases, it will cause confusion, loss of consciousness, shock, and even death. Call for support. We are under enemy attack. Call for support. We are under enemy attack, Liu Shiji shouted at the radio communicator. The mission he came to meet this time was for two important people. It was okay that Xiao Yu came as an incarnation, but Yan Lingjun was a unique real body, and her importance now was no longer the same as before. At the same time, Xiao Yu put on a breathing mask for Yan Lingjun and then put on a breathing mask for himself, and then protected her with his body to minimize the possibility of her being injured. At this time, the Xianfeng fighter that switched to the infantry combat mecha mode fired another round of missiles. The driver of the vehicle where Xiao Yu was urgently slowed down to dodge, and more than a dozen high-explosive missiles with amazing lethality exploded around the vehicle. The violent explosion made Xiao Yu feel that his eardrums were about to be shattered, and he had severe tinnitus, and could hardly hear the outside world. Although he was an incarnation, the incarnation's five senses were able to empathize with his original body in the situation he was experiencing. At this time, one of the high-explosive missiles chased the rear of the motorcycle Xiao Yu was riding and exploded on the ground. Fortunately, the motorcycle moved forward for a distance and did not explode at the most fatal position of its core abdomen, but it still overturned the motorcycle. The motorcycle also lost its ability to float in the air. With inertia, the motorcycle rolled on the ground for 60 or 70 meters. If it had not slowed down before, I am afraid that the vehicle, the motorcycle and the people inside would have all fallen apart. Xiao Yu knew that he was an incarnation, but he still felt a strong threat of death. However, the only thought in his mind now was to protect Yan Lingjun, because he knew that he was an incarnation and it didn't matter if he died, so he used his body to protect Yan Lingjun throughout the whole process. At this moment, the violent bumps and rolls of the floating motorcycle almost made Xiao Yu lose consciousness. In fact, several people in the car almost fainted. After a few seconds, the motorcycle finally stopped. Except for the basic structural outline, the motorcycle had become unrecognizable. Xiao Yu? Xiao Yu. Hearing someone calling his name, Xiao Yu's trance consciousness was gradually pulled back. The voice became clearer and clearer. It was Yan Lingjun's urgent voice. Hearing her voice, it meant that she had not suffered fatal injuries for the time being, and he was relieved. But at this moment, Xiao Yu felt a tingling sensation in his side. A broken section of the steel body of the motorcycle pierced his side. He regained the perception of his body and felt the pain immediately. My waist was stabbed. Fortunately, it was an incarnation, but the pain was too real. He forced a smile while suppressing the pain. And then looked at Yan Lingjun and asked, "How are you?" "Are you okay?" "I'm fine. If you hadn't protected me, I would have been injured," Yan Lingjun said. "Let's not talk about this for now. Get out of the car quickly." Except for Yan Lingjun, almost everyone in the car was injured, and the driver's abdomen had been stabbed with a hole. He was in a dying state. Liu Shiji and another member dragged him out of the car. Another member stuffed some intestinal organs back into his stomach, tied it with a bandage, and gave him an injection. If it were on Earth, the driver would probably be dead. As long as he didn't die on the spot or break into pieces, the medical technology in the Blue Star world could completely save him and he could be rescued when he returned to the town. Liu Shiji was also worried about his men, but he did not forget that the focus of this mission was Xiao Yu and Yan Lingjun. If they confessed here, the sacrificed comrades would have died in vain, so he ignored the injured men and went straight to Xiao Yu and Yan Lingjun. Fortunately, the injury is not serious. This is a sedative. An injection can relieve pain and boost adrenaline. As long as we return to the town, we can treat your injuries immediately. Liu Shiji came to Xiao Yu and Yan Lingjun, quickly took them to a nearby shelter and gave Xiao Yu an injection. He gave himself another injection with his backhand. Liu Shiji was also injured, and his injury was more serious than Xiao Yu. At this time, the Xianfeng Metro launched a new round of attacks again. This time, more than 20 missiles attacked the location where Xiao Yu and the others were. Xiao Yu's heart sank when he saw this scene, but he also reacted quickly and immediately protected Yan Lingjun under his body, facing the flying missiles with his back, but a voice came into his ears at this time. "Activate the joint barrier." 3 accompanying warriors armed with exoskeleton-powered armor quickly rushed to Xiao Yu, Yan Lingjun, Liu Shiji and others. The next moment, a shield barrier emitting a blue halo formed in front of them, and high-explosive missiles roared and exploded around Xiao Yu and others. 5 or 6 high-explosive missiles hit the shield barrier and exploded instantly. Chapter 195, an 800 nano-armed warrior appears. The violent shock wave and sea of fire generated by the explosion were completely blocked by the shield barrier and spread to the surroundings, but did not pass through the shield, so that Xiao Yu and others inside the shield were spared from this round of fatal blows. But at this moment, another round of attacks from the Xianfeng Metro came again. This time the means of attack was a fully charged high-energy plasma cannon, which bombarded with a power far greater than the previous high-explosive missiles. The shield can't hold up. Just after the voice fell, only 1 second passed, and the joint shield barrier was shattered. The shield defense generated by the individual power armor was limited, and it was impossible to gather energy to build a new shield barrier again in a short time to resist the enemy's next wave of attacks. Why haven't the reinforcements arrived yet? Liu Shiji was also anxious. Their escort team could not withstand the firepower of a Xianfeng fighter. The 3 soldiers wearing power armor were all in front of Xiao Yu and others. None of them retreated. They were mentally prepared to die and face the next round of attacks from the Xianfeng fighter head-on. It was slow, but in fact, it took only 2 or 3 seconds. The Xianfeng combat metro was about to complete the charging of the second high-energy plasma cannon and was about to launch an attack. At this time, Xiao Yu, Liu Shiji and others noticed the sky at 10 o'clock. Suddenly, a bright and straight blue light broke through the sky and dived towards the ground at a 45-degree angle. The speed was incredible, reaching a terrifying speed of more than 50 times the speed of sound, almost in the blink of an eye. In a flash, the blue light bombarded the Xianfang combat mecha, and almost at the same time, the Xianfang combat mecha fired a second high-energy plasma cannon, but because it was attacked at that moment, the aiming trajectory deviated and hit the flank position of Xiao Yu and others, avoiding this fatal attack without any danger. At the same time, Xiao Yu and others also saw that the blue light penetrated the Xianfang combat mecha and exploded instantly. Xiao Yu was stunned. He didn't know what kind of attack method this was. The Xianfang fighter was destroyed without any effort. In the flames of the explosion, a silhouette with a human physique emerged from the flames of the explosion and flew straight to the position of Xiao Yu and others. It took only a moment for him to arrive in front of everyone. This figure was obviously a person, and he was wearing some kind of combat exoskeleton, which was obviously more than 10 levels higher than the power armor of the armed individual soldiers. Xiao Yu stared at it and thought to himself, could this be? At this moment, Liu Shiji was very excited when he saw this. Great, it's our nano super soldier, now we are safe. Liu Shiji and several other people were very excited at this moment, and the morale of all the members was greatly boosted. Liu Shiji immediately turned to look at Xiao Yu and said, Mr. Xiao, we are safe. There is an N800 nano super soldier to support us. Even if there are hundreds of Xianfang fighters, it is not enough for a nano super soldier to chop melons and vegetables. Xiao Yu immediately thought to himself that it was indeed the N800 nano weapon. He had just vaguely guessed that this was the case. At this time, the full coverage exoskeleton helmet of the nano-armed warrior quickly faded, as if it was decomposed at the microscopic level. It was a heroic woman. In fact, Xiao Yu had already judged that it should be a woman from the other party's slender figure. The N800 nano-armed exoskeleton was almost equivalent to a set of body-shaping combat suits. In comparison, the power armor seemed much more cumbersome. Is everyone okay? The female warrior stepped forward and said. 3 comrades were sacrificed, and another is in critical condition and needs urgent treatment, but fortunately the mission goal is temporarily unimpeded. Liu Shiji reported to her that the level of each N800 nano warrior was very high, and the rank was colonel level, which was equivalent to the commander of a combat brigade. Because such an N800 nano-armed warrior can achieve the results that a combat brigade can achieve, this is similar to the high rank of Air Force pilots. In addition to scarcity, the key is that the results achieved by an Air Force pilot in a combat mission are no less than a regimental combat unit on the ground, so the rank level is often matched with it. On the other hand, the addition of an N800 nano warrior can often change the direction of the battle. At this moment, several squadrons of Xianfang fighter planes appeared in the sky not far away. They were originally to reinforce the battlefield in front, but suddenly turned and headed straight for Xiao Yu and others. The Xianfang fighter is an active intelligent unmanned fighter in the Kingdom of Heaven. If a human pilot is flying a plane, if he sees the existence of an N800 nano warrior in front, he will definitely turn around and run away, and it is impossible to face the attack directly. In the Blue Star world, the only one who can fight against the N800 nano-armed warrior is another N800 nano-armed warrior. You return to the base as soon as possible. Leave this to me, the female warrior said. Without waiting for Liu Shiji to respond, she saw the exoskeleton helmet covering her head again, and flew into the sky before she finished speaking. Then it suddenly accelerated in the air, and the sound of a sonic boom was heard in an instant, turning into a blue stream of light and heading towards the attacking Xianfang fighter. It sounds slow, but it actually happened very fast. Xiao Yu and his group hadn't moved yet, and the blue stream of light shuttled back and forth above the sky. The Xianfang fighters in the air exploded one after another, as if blooming brilliant fireworks, accompanied by the debris of the Xianfang fighters falling from the sky. The flying speed of the Xianfang fighter is actually very fast, with a maximum speed of 25 times the speed of sound. In the eyes of Xiao Yu, an earthling, such a flying speed is already quite terrifying. But the flying speed of the N800 nano-armed is even more terrifying, reaching an incredible 60 times the speed of sound, which is about 10 times the speed of sound faster than the third cosmic speed of the solar system. The most outrageous thing is that the people inside can be safe and sound under such high-speed maneuvers. Not to mention anything else, a high-speed maneuver overload can instantly kill a person, But the N-800 nano-armed armaments the human body, and protects the human body in all directions from the cell structure level, so that people can be safe and sound, just like Superman. Moreover, the nano-mimicry ability also has a strong repairability. As long as it is not instantly killed and vaporized into a molecular structure, the nano-mimicry ability can even temporarily and quickly generate nano-organs to temporarily replace the damaged body organs and tissues, and continue to maintain combat effectiveness. In Xiao Yu's view, this is simply equivalent to the combination of the Hulk, Iron Man and Deadpool Wolverine. It is really too abnormal. At this moment, Xiao Yu couldn't help but smack his lips secretly when he saw this scene. This was the first time he witnessed the terrifying strength of the N-800 nano-armed. Just as Liu Shiji said, the Xianfeng fighter was like paper in front of the N-800 nano-armed fighters, and shooting down these fighters was as easy as cutting melons and vegetables. It was simply a one-sided absolute force crushing. You must know that just now it was just a Xianfeng fighter, and Xiao Yu and his group were almost wiped out. As a result, now 20 or 30 Xianfeng fighters are facing an N-800 nano-armed fighter, and they have no power to fight back. The real visual impact made Xiao Yu feel even more deeply. No wonder Liu Shiji and the others were so excited when they saw the N-800 nano-armed warriors appear, and they firmly believed that they were safe. Chapter 196, It's just a fight between gods. It's not advisable to stay here for long. Let's go quickly. We are only temporarily safe now. We are not out of danger until we return to the base. Liu Shiji looked at the N-800 nano-armed warriors in the sky who were killing people everywhere. He then retracted his gaze and looked at Xiao Yu and others and said, Our nano-super warriors have appeared. It is estimated that it will not be long before the nano-super warriors of the Kingdom of Heaven will come to intercept us. If our super warriors are pinned down, then the Kingdom of Heaven will randomly dispatch a Xianfeng fighter to deal with us, and we can be easily wiped out. Liu Shiji did not dare to delay too much. He knew very well that the appearance of his own N-800 nano-armed warriors often meant that the enemy's N-800 super warriors would not appear for too long, and vice versa. Because the only one who can effectively target the existence of the N-800 nano-armed warriors is another N-800 nano-armed warrior, which is also the most cost-effective way to deal with it. Although a nuclear bomb can kill the N-800 nano-armed warriors, they cannot throw nuclear bombs at their own land and faces. Moreover, the most important thing is that the N-800 nano-armed warriors are too mobile. They cannot catch up before the nuclear bomb is detonated. The N-800 nano-armed warriors are not fools and will definitely stay away from the nuclear bombs, so they cannot be effectively killed. However, unless it is absolutely necessary, no party will tolerate such super warriors to unilaterally crush their own combat forces on the battlefield and sit idly by. The cost is too high. Because the destructive power of the N-800 nano-armed warriors is too amazing, if they are not dealt with or targeted, they can really change the situation of a battle. At this moment, taking advantage of the support of their own N-800 nano-armed, Xiao Yu and others immediately moved towards the direction of the town. Liu Shiji was also surprised at this moment, because there were no N-800 nano-armed warriors stationed in Qingyang town. Such top combat power is also in short supply within the Red Tide organization. It is obvious that they came from other places to support. This also made Liu Shiji further realize that the central headquarters paid more attention to Xiao Yu and Yan Lingjun than he expected. What made him feel relieved was that fortunately, the two were safe and sound. Although Xiao Yu was injured, it was not fatal, and he was still an incarnation. Not long after their team evacuated, a stream of light rushed over from the other end of the sky at more than 55 times the speed of sound. It was the N-800 nano-armed warriors of the Kingdom of Heaven who came to intercept and instantly entangled with a female warrior from the Red Tide organization, ending her unilateral slaughter of the Xianfeng fighter. Xiao Yu also looked back at the battle situation in the sky from time to time. The naked eye could not see the details of the fight between the two N-800 nano-armed warriors. He only saw two rays of light in the sky colliding violently, accompanied by a sonic boom. The two super warriors were engaged in the most primitive close combat above the sky. It's really a fight between gods. Xiao Yu retracted his gaze and smacked his lips secretly. The N-800 nano-armed weapon is indeed a product that represents the top technological level of the Blue Star world. If he had this thing, Xiao Yu felt that he could walk sideways on Earth. Such super black technology can really make a person comparable to gods with a mortal body. At this moment, The two remaining Xianfeng fighters in the sky did not cooperate with the N-800 nano-armed warriors of the Kingdom of Heaven to intercept the female warrior of the Red Tide organization, because in such a battle, the Xianfeng fighters could not effectively intervene at all, and it would be useless if they went. If the N-800 nano super display of the Kingdom of Heaven was a few seconds slower, the two Xianfeng fighters would also be destroyed by the female warrior, but at this moment she was restrained by the opponent and had no time to take care of it. The two Xianfeng fighters were ordered by the N-800 nano super warrior of the Kingdom of Heaven to attack Xiao Yu and others, and immediately turned around and rushed towards Xiao Yu and others. Liu Shiji and others were shocked when they saw this. "It's bad," Liu Shiji shouted immediately. "Cover the target." The three power armor warriors in the team immediately generated a shield barrier to cover Xiao Yu, Yan Lingjin and others to evacuate. When one of the Xianfeng fighters was about to launch a plasma cannon, a high-energy plasma ray suddenly burst out from a distance and hit the Xianfeng fighter accurately, instantly losing stability. The fuselage rolled to the left with billowing smoke and hit another Xianfeng fighter. Both fighters were destroyed. Liu Shiji breathed a sigh of relief. The one who made the move was the female warrior who was fighting with the enemy. She took advantage of a gap to destroy the last two remaining Xianfeng fighters, but this also exposed a huge flaw in front of her opponent. The opponent instantly hit the female warrior's lower abdomen with a blast. The female warrior fell to the ground in a straight line like a meteorite, smashing a big hole on the ground. It can be seen how terrifying the impact of this blow was. "How dare you be distracted while fighting with me?" The super soldier of the Kingdom of Heaven was suspended in the sky, looking coldly at the female soldier in the pit on the ground. He looked in the direction of Xiao Yu and others, and suddenly said with a smile, "You seem to be protecting a very important person." Before he finished speaking, his speed suddenly increased, and accompanied by the sound of sonic explosions, he rushed straight towards Xiao Yu and others. At the same time, the female soldier who was hid on the ground with a big hole instantly shot out from the hole at a 45-degree angle, generating a violent shock wave on the ground. The impact crater was shaken to a larger circle, and it was also accompanied by the sound of sonic explosions. It can be seen how terrifying the instantaneous acceleration of the N-800 nano-armed is, and it can also protect the human body from such acceleration overload damage. Seeing the opponent whistling, the warrior of the Kingdom of Heaven knew that he could not get close to Xiao Yu and others, fearing that he would be hit hard by the opponent if he exposed his flaws, but he was unwilling to give up, so he directly shot a high-energy plasma ray for a long-range attack. However, the joint shield barrier constructed by the three accompanying power armor warriors blocked the attack. The firepower of the N-800 nano-armed warriors was much more fierce than that of the Xianfeng fighters. The joint shield barrier was broken after only 1 second. But 1 second was enough. The female warrior also locked the super warrior of the Kingdom of Heaven and launched a high-energy plasma ray attack. The opponent was forced to stop attacking at the same time and turned around to open the shield for defense. The speed of the high-energy plasma ray reached sublight speed. Once it was locked, it was impossible to dodge and could only be taken. On the ground, one of the power armor warriors was directly pierced through the left shoulder by the high-energy plasma ray, and his left arm was cut off by the ray. If the ray deviated a little to the right, he would be shot in the head instantly. The power armor warrior couldn't help but howl in pain, but then he took off his helmet, picked up a shot of sedative in his right hand and injected it into his neck to relieve the pain caused by the broken arm. He used a bandage to block the wound of the broken arm, but the heavy bleeding could not be suppressed. "Stop the bleeding," he ran and yelled to his comrade beside him. His comrade raised his hand without hesitation, and aimed a nozzle on the arm of the power armor at the wound of his broken arm, and then sprayed out a strong flame. Xiao Yu couldn't help but be moved when he saw this scene. This method of stopping bleeding was too hardcore. It directly roasted the wound of the broken arm and bonded it with a bandage to quickly achieve a temporary hemostasis effect. As for the broken arm, it would definitely not be kept. As long as we return to the base, we can regenerate an arm and reattach it through cloning technology. These scenes made Xiao Yu realize that with the support of the advanced medical technology and cloning technology in the Blue Star world, as long as the personnel did not die instantly on the spot, they could basically be rescued. Even if they were missing arms and legs, they could be restored and reattached through cloning technology. Its advanced medical technology has also greatly improved the survival ability of the soldiers. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 197, 2000 meters underground. At the same time, the super soldier of the Kingdom of Heaven in the air opened his shield to withstand the bombardment of high-energy plasma rays. He did not stand there and resist, because high-energy plasma rays can be continuously output at high power, and the shield will be broken sooner or later if he resists. Either find a shelter to avoid it, or stop the opponent from stopping the high-energy output. So he directly resisted the bombardment of the ray, and at the same time flew straight and fast towards the female soldier. He was not afraid of being kite-ed by the opponent, because the opponent would definitely not run away to protect important people. It sounds slow, but it actually happened very quickly. The super soldier of the Kingdom of Heaven was right in his judgment. The female soldier of the Red Tide organization did not kite him. After approaching, the female soldier also stopped the high-energy ray output. The two sides fell into fierce close combat again. In a moment, both of them fell to the ground at high speed from the air, and hit the ground hard with a sound of sonic boom, and hit the position near Xiao Yu and others. The two super soldiers started a fierce fight on the ground again, and each collision shook the surrounding air to form a violent shock wave. As an earthling, where have I seen such a scene? Xiao Yu was a little stunned even if he was calm. However, Liu Shiji and others were much calmer. This was the first time Xiao Yu saw such a scene, but they had seen it many times and were no longer surprised. After a while, the two super soldiers fought each other and pulled away from Xiao Yu and others by several kilometers. At this time, they were getting closer and closer to the base. The super soldier of the Kingdom of Heaven did not dare to go too deep. He was already restrained and was likely to be blocked by the defensive high-energy artillery in the base of the Red Tide organization and the female soldiers. In the Blue Star world, the N800 nano-armed warriors are very powerful, but they are not absolutely invincible. In addition to nuclear bombs that can kill them, there are also ultra-high-energy plasma rays or high-energy laser weapons. As long as the energy level power reaches a certain value, the N800 nano-armed warriors can be bombarded into a molecular state. If they cannot be killed, it must be that the output power is not large enough. This is equivalent to turning into ash, and naturally they cannot survive. The strength of the N800 nano-armed warriors lies in that they cannot be ignored. If this kind of combat unit is ignored, it can really turn the tide when it enters the battlefield, and it will crush other conventional armed forces. At this moment, Xiao Yu and others are already within 1 kilometer of the base. Everyone saw a group of people coming towards them quickly. Liu Shiji was overjoyed when he saw this. The people who are picking us up are here. After a while, more than a dozen people driving hoverbikes met Xiao Yu and his group. Everyone immediately got on the hoverbikes and immediately turned to drive into the base. At the same time, 6 or 7 power armor warriors opened shields to cover. The last kilometer distance is the most dangerous, because at this moment, the army of the Kingdom of Heaven and the Red Tide army are fighting fiercely here. The large army of the Kingdom of Heaven is attacking Qingyang town. The bombing in the air is uninterrupted. And there is a huge intelligent mechanical mixed core advancing on the ground. The troops of the Red Tide organization are blocking the enemy's attack. There are also mechanical troops and human warriors wearing armed power armor. Is this Qingyang town? Xiao Yu looked around and said in astonishment. As soon as he finished speaking, a high explosive bomb splashed and exploded near the road, but the shrapnel was blocked by the shield barrier and did not threaten Xiao Yu and others. That's right, Liu Shiji said. At this moment, there were fierce bombing sounds all around, the roar of fighter planes in the sky, and the sound of various artillery attacks. If the sound was too low, it would not be heard at all. Xiao Yu looked around in astonishment and subconsciously said, how can this be Qingyang town? How can this be a base? This is clearly a battlefield. He walked through the battlefield. Qingyang town had turned into ruin. The ground was full of dilapidated ruins, smoke was billowing, and there were craters everywhere. The scene in front of him kept telling Xiao Yu that he was in the battlefield at the moment. This was also the first time he witnessed and personally experienced a war in the Blue Star world. Xiao Yu subconsciously compared it with his hometown on Earth. In fact, the Earth was not peaceful either. The Goose Cry War was taking place. Big Mao and Second Mao were also fighting, and there was even a trend of evolving towards S3. But compared with the offensive and defensive battle that was erupting in Qingyang town at the moment, Dumao and Ermao were simply playing house. The battle here was extremely brutal, and the amount of ammunition invested in one day could equal the consumption of Dumao and Ermao fighting for 1 or 2 years. The Qingyang town that Xiao Yu was familiar with was now completely unrecognizable, and it was destroyed beyond recognition by the war. "Where is the base?" Xiao Yu said loudly. "We've arrived, right here," Liu Shiji replied. Xiao Yu was stunned when he heard this. "What? This?" Liu Shiji couldn't help but laugh and answered loudly, "Mr. Xiao, please be safe, we will be safe soon." After a while, everyone walked through the town, came to ruin, and then passed through a large trench. Xiao Yu saw a huge steel gate, which was now open, with combat machinery constantly entering and exiting, and many human soldiers wearing power armor, and many wounded soldiers carried down from the front line were transferred to the gate. At this time, Xiao Yu also followed Liu Shiji and others in. Yan Lingjin immediately looked at Xiao Yu and said, "It is in Qingyang town, but not on the ground. It is 1,700 to 2,000 meters deep underground under our feet." As soon as these words came out, Xiao Yu suddenly realized, so that's it. A group of them entered the inner hall, where there was an extremely tense and busy atmosphere. Xiao Yu and his group came to one of the elevators, and as soon as the door was closed, they quickly descended underground. At this time, Liu Shiji and others completely relaxed. He smiled and said, "Fortunately, we have fulfilled our mission. We are completely safe now." Xiao Yu couldn't help but say, "It turns out that the base is 2,000 meters underground in Qingyang town. Why did you choose to build a base here? It seems that this place is a battleground for military strategists. If it is built in a war zone, won't it be a passive situation where we have to rescue the enemy when we attack?" Yan Lingjin said, "On the one hand, the geographical location of Qingyang town is important. It is a battleground for military strategists, so we chose it. On the other hand, the most important thing is that the underground geological structure of Qingyang town is stable. Such a geological environment is rare. Our bases are all built underground. Only in this way can we get the protection of the bottom layer of the planet and avoid the saturation firepower attack of the Kingdom of Heaven." Liu Shiji also said, "The enemy's firepower is too strong. It is not advisable to build a base on the ground. There is no safety at all. It cannot be protected at all. The speed of construction cannot keep up with the speed of enemy destruction, so we can only move underground." Hearing this, Xiao Yu nodded in understanding. No wonder the weak red tide organization has been able to survive so tenaciously. Previously, in the eyes of Xiao Yu, an Earthling, the technology and armed forces of the Blue Star world were so advanced, and the armed forces of the Kingdom of Heaven were so powerful, that this organization should have no room to survive and develop. Now it seems that Xiao Yu realized that his understanding was insufficient, and advanced technological civilization also had corresponding fighting methods. Based on the same advanced technological level, this organization can also be physically transferred to the underground, and directly establish a base 1 or 2,000 meters underground. The advanced technology and productivity of the Blue Star world can drill into the ground so deep to dig out a huge living space. Xiao Yu himself used the technology of the Blue Star world to build a secret base 800 meters underground in his villa area. He had a deep understanding of this. His underground base was not small, but it took only about half a year to build it. At this moment, the elevator speed dropped to about 2,000 meters and stopped steadily. As the door opened, Xiao Yu followed everyone out of the elevator. Xiao Yu was amazed by the scene in front of him, and was even more shocked. This was an extremely vast underground space. Xiao Yu looked around and couldn't help but exclaimed, "It's really a different world. It's hard to imagine that there are wars on the surface, but this place is so peaceful and unaffected by any war." Chapter 198, Powerful Medical Technology Level. Although they had clearly arrived at a depth of 2,000 meters underground, Xiao Yu saw a huge town standing before him. If he had not expected it in advance and knew that it was 2,000 meters underground, he would not have been able to distinguish it at all. There were streets, buildings, and the sky. Everything was almost the same as on the surface. At this time, Yan Lingjin immediately took off his breathing mask, supported the injured Xiao Yu, and said, "I will take you to the medical room to treat your wounds first, and we will talk about everything after you recover." Xiao Yu nodded, and he also took off his breathing mask. The outdoors here are all underground, and no one needs to wear a breathing mask, which means that there is a set of air circulation devices covering the entire base. Yan Lingjun took Xiao Yu to the medical room and said, "This is a holographic projection that simulates the surface scene, so that people living 2,000 meters underground do not feel that they are underground. With the support of holographic projection, there is no difference from the surface. The blue sky and white clouds and the moon and stars will cycle and alternate, completely simulating the living and working environment on the surface." Hearing this, Xiao Yu also nodded. In fact, after being amazed at the beginning, he had already realized that holographic projection technology must have been used. The base he built 800 meters underground on the Earth also has a holographic projection simulation function, but compared with it, it is more like a mini version, and this underground base is more like a super plus version. After a few minutes, Yan Lingjun took Xiao Yu into a medical hall, which was extremely busy at the moment, with a large number of wounded sent down from the front line for emergency treatment. Liu Shiji also carried his seriously injured and dying subordinate over, and shouted at the same time, "Medic, hurry up, he can't hold on." Two medical staff immediately came to help, and immediately carried the wounded away and sent them to an operating table. Liu Shiji immediately said to one of the medical staff, "Make another operating table immediately. An important foreign guest is injured and needs urgent treatment." The medical staff nodded immediately. Understood. Xiao Yu looked around and immediately said to Liu Shiji, "My injury is not a big problem. It's okay to delay for a while. Let's treat the seriously injured first." Just now, after looking around, the current medical resources are very tight. After all, it is a wartime state. There is a war on the ground. There are constantly seriously injured people being carried down from the front line, resulting in a shortage of medical resources. Xiao Yu's injuries were not light, but not fatal. Moreover, this was not his original body, but a transformed body, so he was not in a hurry. However, Liu Shiji immediately shook his head and said, "How can that be? You are an important guest, and there can be no mistakes, otherwise I can't explain to my superiors." After waiting for a while, Xiao Yu was sent to the operating table for treatment as soon as possible. He didn't refuse much and listened to their arrangements. Xiao Yu quickly focused his attention on the operating table. He was not unfamiliar with it. This was a relatively common intelligent medical operating table in the Blue Star world. A medical staff member operated on the holographic panel next to the operating table for a moment, and the surgical operation started immediately. This operating table is equipped with a laser scalpel, an AI-controlled robotic surgical arm, and 3D anatomical scanning technology, etc., which can perform ultra-fine laser incisions. As the operation started, a transparent glass hatch separated the inside and outside. After the disinfection and isolation were completed, local anesthetics were quickly applied, and the robotic surgical arm began to treat Xiao Yu's wound. The entire operation process did not require human intervention. Xiao Yu was not fatally injured. His operation was completed in only about half an hour. What surprised him most was the healing speed of the wound, which was so fast that it was visible to the naked eye. At the same time as the operation was completed, the wound had almost healed. It turned out that this was the use of a powerful growth hormone, which can accelerate metabolism and allow new cell tissue to be quickly generated at the wound site, thereby achieving the effect of rapid healing. After the powerful growth hormone is exhausted, the metabolic level will return to normal. Such an efficient treatment method opens Xiao Yu's eyes as an earthling. Many wounded soldiers carried down from the front line, as long as they were not fatally injured, like the dying soldier who escorted Xiao Yu and others back to the base, could return to the front line within an hour to continue fighting with injuries like Xiao Yu. To a large extent, the powerful medical technology level of the Blue Star world also allows human warriors to face the intelligent mechanical army. Although they are flesh and blood, the overall combat effectiveness of the troops is not weak. At this moment, Xiao Yu came down from the operating table and was considered to be fully revived. The operating table was quickly disinfected and was about to be prepared for the next wounded to operate. Yan Lingjun immediately stepped forward and took Xiao Yu out of the medical hall. At this moment, a middle-aged man came over and many people saluted him. This person walked straight towards Xiao Yu. Seeing this, Yan Lingjun immediately introduced him to Xiao Yu. "This is Zhang Xingyan, the third leader of our organization. He came here from the headquarters to meet you." After a brief introduction, Zhang Xingyan looked at Xiao Yu and said apologetically, "I'm very sorry, Mr. Xiao. We are really incompetent as hosts. You, such an important guest, are injured as soon as you arrive. Hearing this, Xiao Yu smiled politely and said, "It's okay. It's okay. Besides, it's just an incarnation." After a few pleasantries, Zhang Xingyuan invited Xiao Yu to VIP reception room for a chat. The Red Tide organization sent their third person to meet Xiao Yu, which also shows how much the organization values Xiao Yu. The two sides did not talk in the reception room for too long, and Zhang Xingyuan said goodbye and left. First, let Xiao Yu rest and recuperate after his injury, and second, they are now in a state of war. Xiao Yu also made the best of it. Anyway, he was an incarnation, so he was calm. Yan Lingjun was not assigned any other work, but was responsible for taking care of and accompanying Xiao Yu. As a key member of the organization, Zhang Xingyuan already knew the relationship between Xiao Yu and Yan Lingjun, who had reported this matter some time ago. "Let's go outside." Xiao Yu looked at Yan Lingjun and said, he also wanted to see what the base 2,000 meters underground was like. Hearing this, Yan Lingjun nodded and smiled. "No problem, then I will be your guide for once." After a few minutes, Xiao Yu came to a street outside, but he was soon attracted by the slogans written on the walls of some buildings on the street. These slogans were too familiar to Xiao Yu, and they were brought to the Blue Star world by him. Seeing this, Yan Lingjun couldn't help but smile and said, "The books you provided back then are now being studied by all members under the call of the headquarters, which is of great help to us." Chapter 199, Achieving Food Self-Sufficiency. Xiao Yu was quite happy to see that they had already put this into practice, and to hear Yan Lingjun say that the effect was very good and that they were increasing the promotion efforts. After wandering around this street for a while, Xiao Yu asked curiously, "How many people does this underground town accommodate?" Hearing this, Yan Lingjun replied, "A total of about 410,000 people." Xiao Yu was shocked to hear this number and couldn't help but turn his head to glance at Yan Lingjun. "So many? This is equivalent to about 10 times the population size of Qingyang Town at the time." Qingyang Town was a town of about 40,000 to 50,000 people at the time. Xiao Yu didn't expect that this underground town actually had 410,000 people living in it. This population size is equivalent to the average resident population of a county in his hometown on Earth. The most important thing is that this is 2,000 meters underground, not on the ground, and it was built from scratch in just over 3 years. What really shocked Xiao Yu was the terrifying technological productivity that it showed, which far exceeded that of the Earth. Being able to build an underground town that can accommodate 410,000 people from scratch at a depth of 2,000 meters underground in such a short time is simply a fantasy on Earth. Behind this fact, it is also an indirect interpretation that the Blue Star world is far more powerful than the Earth's technological productivity, and it must have been built without letting go. Because the Kingdom of Heaven cannot allow the organization to build this underground town so easily, there must be many constraints and restrictions when building this underground town. Even so, in such a short time, an underground town that can accommodate 410,000 people was built. How can Xiao Yu, an Earthling, not be surprised? According to Yan Lingjun's brief description, the original inhabitants of Qingyang Town basically stayed, and the other personnel were transferred from other places. They were generally the families of soldiers. Another important factor for the soldiers to be fearless is that behind them are their relatives and friends. There is no way to retreat, and they can only fight to the death. Xiao Yu wandered around this underground town for more than half an hour, and was then arranged to rest in a residence. On the next day, Zhang Xingyuan came to visit again. Mr. Xiao, the war is tight, and I am really sorry for the poor hospitality, Zhang Xingyuan said apologetically when he saw Xiao Yu, and the latter naturally responded politely. It is worth mentioning that Zhang Xingyuan was one of the important figures who supported the cooperation with Xiao Yu at the beginning, and it was he who proposed the courtesy first, and provided him with organic body technology before Xiao Yu provided enough materials and means of support. After a few pleasantries, the two sides began to talk. Xiao Yu slowly said, "I really didn't expect that you built such a huge town 2,000 meters underground, and I didn't expect that the people here have no complaints. I took a walk yesterday and found that the people from top to bottom were united, worked together, and could live and work in peace. This kind of atmosphere is rare and surprising." Xiao Yu also raised his hand to the other party. Zhang Xingyuan was of course happy to hear this, but Xiao Yu was not flattering, and his description was indeed objective facts. Zhang Xingyuan sighed and said, "It's still difficult, especially the big problem of food. There are more than hundreds of thousands of mouths to feed. These 410,000 people have to consume 13.5 tons of starch and other nutrients every day. Food and supplies have to be transported from the ground. The enemy's resistance is extremely fierce, and they have been trying to cut off our supply line. The advantages of building a base 2,000 meters underground are obvious, but the disadvantages are also very obvious. Supply is a big problem. At this time, Zhang Xingyan changed the subject. He looked at Xiao Yu and smiled. However, with the grain crop seeds with breeding capacity provided by Mr. Xiao, the situation has undergone a fundamental change. It is no exaggeration to say that Mr. Xiao's help has entered an unprecedented new historical stage for our cause. We all want to thank Mr. Xiao for your righteousness. Xiao Yu immediately smiled and said, "You are too kind. I dare not take the responsibility." Zhang Xingyan suddenly said, "Mr. Xiao, I will take you to visit a place." Hearing this, Xiao Yu nodded happily. After a while, accompanied by several people, Zhang Xingyan took him to the northwest edge of the underground town. Excavation work is in full swing here, with many giant equipment constantly digging the bottom layer. The soil layer will not be transferred to the ground, but will be directly compacted to further strengthen the wall. Zhang Xingyan turned his head and looked at Xiao Yu and introduced him. Thanks to the food crop seeds provided by Mr. Xiao, this base has also been allocated a part, and we have dug out a planting area in this place, with an estimated area of 3.5 square kilometers. Xiao Yu was secretly surprised when he heard this number. It was really a big deal. It was converted to an area of more than 5,000 acres. You know, this is 2,000 meters underground. But this is the Blue Star world, so it's not that outrageous. At the same time, Zhang Xingyan smiled and said, once this planting area is completed and put into use, it is expected to produce 80,000 tons of grain a year, which is enough for the 410,000 people in the base to be self-sufficient in grain. Xiao Yu couldn't help but be stunned when he heard this. According to the thinking of the Earth, it is absolutely impossible to produce 80,000 tons of grain with an area of 3.5 square kilometers. Xiao Yu knows the approximate yield of the grain crop seeds he provided. If it is planted in the open air on the Earth, it will not be able to grow without more than 100,000 acres of land. However, at this time, an accompanying staff member next to Zhang Xingyan immediately called up a holographic projection model, which was exactly what the planting area would look like after it was built. Just when he was confused, Xiao Yu saw this data model and soon realized it. It turned out that soilless cultivation was adopted and the space utilization rate was maximized. Planting was not limited to one plane, but a three-dimensional multi-level development. Planting 2 layers equaled an area of 3.5 square kilometers, and the actual planting area was 7 square kilometers, 3 layers was 10.5 square kilometers, and so on. Moreover, food is particularly precious in the current Blue Star world. Planting it requires a lot of effort and careful cultivation. With the help of advanced technology in the Blue Star world, 5 or even 6 crops a year are not a problem. Combined with the use of multi-layer space, it is not a fantasy to produce 80,000 tons of food a year in an area of 3.5 square kilometers. The Blue Star world does not lack modern agricultural technology, but it lacks crop seeds with breeding capabilities, which are artificially blocked at the genetic level. Once this monopoly is broken, with the assistance of the existing advanced technology in the Blue Star world, production capacity will definitely be easily increased. At this time, Xiao Yu nodded and said to himself, with an annual output of 80,000 tons of food, 410,000 people can have an average of 390 kilograms of food per person per year, so having enough food is not a problem. Zhang Xingyan laughed and said, more than enough, more than enough. Not only can we eat enough, but also eat well. The days of eating one meal and being hungry for the next are gone forever. Even if the enemy cuts off the supply of materials in the area, we can achieve self-sufficiency in the future. Xiao Yu thought of his hometown on Earth. The domestic per capita consumption of raw grain is about 193 kilograms, which is about 400 kilograms, and this is still taking into account various extravagant and wasteful data. As long as the planting area of this base is built, the annual production capacity will be 80,000 tons, and the per capita food of 390 kilograms will definitely overflow, because in the Blue Star world, precious food will never be wasted. Zhang Xingyan looked at Xiao Yu and said, Mr. Xiao, you may have underestimated how much help your help will bring to our cause. It is not an exaggeration to say that it has brought a historic turning point to our cause. Chapter 200, Return to Fenquin City. Everyone present respected Xiao Yu very much. Zhang Xingyan was right. His help was a historic turning point for the organization, which was unanimously recognized within the organization. Xiao Yu could see the big picture from the small. Yesterday, he and Yan Lingjun wandered around this underground town. Although there were wars and fierce battles on the ground, the atmosphere shown by every citizen here was completely different from those people Xiao Yu saw in Qingyang town. Now, the people in this underground town can be said to have light in their eyes. In a down-to-earth way, there is hope. Because after the allocated grain crop seeds were delivered here, the Red Tide Organization Department issued a notice to the people of the city. From now on, not only can everyone's food problem be solved, but they will no longer have to eat hard-to-swallow synthetic starch. There are fragrant rice, as well as fresh fruits and vegetables, and every meal can be enjoyed. The key is that this is no longer a pie in the sky, but a foreseeable future that will soon be realized. This is really incredible. The people at the bottom of the Blue Star world dare not think of such a picture, not even in their dreams. Everyone is looking forward to the future blueprint drawn by the organization. When they return to the ground in the future, everyone can be allocated food seeds to plant by themselves. A better life is not 2,000 meters underground, but on the ground. There is no doubt that such appeal is terrifying, and the support it has received is unprecedented. The current situation is that everyone is united, the combat effectiveness of the soldiers is also off the charts, and there is no need to force conscription. Young children from all households have taken the initiative to sign up to serve in the army and are willing to go to the front line. At the same time, thanks to the organization's propaganda efforts that have been deeply rooted in the hearts of the people, everyone firmly believes that they must not live in a corner underground. This is not a long-term solution. Only by completely defeating the kingdom of heaven can these beautiful days be sustainable. People's hearts are unprecedented, and this is a historic turning point. Because of Xiao Yu's appearance and his help, the organization's confidence in the future is now stronger than ever. With the seeds of food crops that have the ability to reproduce, the rest of the problems are no longer a problem. This underground town can be completely independent of external food supplies, and it will be able to achieve self-sufficiency in the future. Because what is consumed is energy in essence, the sunlight required for growing food can simulate the light source, and it is also fine-tuned by human intervention, which can put crops in the best growth environment. As for energy consumption, the core source of energy for the underground town is a large-scale controlled nuclear fusion reactor. The Blue Star world has long mastered fusion energy technology. The energy consumption required for food crops is a drop in the bucket compared to the consumption of war. At this moment, after visiting this planting area for a while, Xiao Yu and others left, and accompanied by several people, they walked and chatted with Zhang Xingyan. Xiao Yu suddenly said, "We have food, fruits and vegetables, but we still need fresh meat. I will think of a solution to this problem later." Everyone was overjoyed when they heard this. Zhang Xingyan immediately smiled and said, "Don't be anxious, and don't be anxious. We have never dared to think of the current situation before. We must consolidate the current good situation. We can't get fat in one breath. Fresh meat is essentially mainly for protein intake. People in the Blue Star world now basically supplement protein directly, but it is certain that fresh meat is very attractive, because people are not machines after all, and eating and satisfying taste buds is a huge emotional value." Xiao Yu is not being attentive for nothing. The other party is polite first, taking the risk of him running away and losing contact to take out the organic body technology first. Xiao Yu's move is also a courtesy. The super black technology of N800 nano armament has not been obtained yet. How powerful this thing is, he witnessed it with his own eyes yesterday, and he likes it even more, and he can't wait to get this black technology now. However, Xiao Yu did not show any expression about this. Although deep down he wanted to obtain this technology urgently, he acted very calmly at the moment. He did not even mention this issue. Instead, he was thinking about it for the organization. He believed that the other party would not forget this matter. After all, the two parties had an equal cooperative relationship, not a subordinate relationship. After a moment, Xiao Yu smiled and said, "To raise poultry and get the meat food they need, the space needed is even greater. It's better to fight back to the ground." Zhang Xingyan immediately said, "Of course, the goal of fighting back to the ground will never change." Xiao Yu immediately said, "But as long as you give me some time, it will not be a problem to provide you with a large amount of meat products at that time. It's just difficult, Not impossible. Hearing this, Zhang Xingyun looked around at the accompanying personnel for a moment and then looked at Xiao Yu again and smiled. Then on behalf of all the members of my organization, I would like to thank Mr. Xiao for his great help. If you need our help, Mr. Xiao can just speak up. After all, this is also our business. Xiao Yu nodded and smiled. If necessary, we will naturally seek your assistance. Having said that, it is definitely not necessary. After all, this is transporting food from the Earth, and Xiao Yu cannot let the locals of the Blue Star world participate. The meeting and conversation between the two sides can be said to be a happy one for both the host and the guest. After this meeting, the two sides have also established a deeper trust, which is obviously very important and of great positive significance for the future cooperation between the two sides. In the following days, Xiao Yu continued to stay here. At first, he planned to stay for half a day and then leave after being invited. But by chance, the Kingdom of Heaven launched a new round of attacks on this place, so Xiao Yu had to stay for a while longer. Of course, he could leave at any time if he wanted to. After all, there was a plugin like the Teleportation Ring, but he certainly couldn't do it this way. There was a difference in the flow of time between the two worlds, but Xiao Yu didn't care. As time went by, about a week later, the attack of the Kingdom of Heaven was repelled again. 2 days later, Xiao Yu was secretly transferred out before the Kingdom of Heaven regrouped its troops to launch a new round of attacks, and returned to Fenquin City, the core area controlled by the Kingdom of Heaven. Yan Lingjun also returned with him. She continued to work on the front line and maintained the status quo, playing the role of Xiao Yu's assistant in the Prism Company. Of course, in the eyes of the company's employees, she is now the boss's wife. After the trip, Xiao Yu waited for Luo Guanqi to purchase the local specialties of Blue Star that he listed and bring them back to Earth. The next day, in Xiao Yu's villa residence, Yan Lingjun came here today, and after returning to Fenquin City, she moved here directly. Now that the relationship is confirmed and it is also publicized in the company, it is only natural for them to live together. The headquarters has informed me that the technology and equipment for the N800 nano-armament are already being planned, and they will be packaged directly for you in one stop, Yan Lingjun said with a smile. Xiao Yu was overjoyed when he heard this. The progress of obtaining this black technology that he had been thinking about has finally made substantial progress. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.